Good evening, everyone. The City Council meeting of July 25th, 2011 will now come to order. Please turn off all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. And I'll give these two gentlemen a chance to sit down. Good evening, gentlemen, on the end. Hi. I said good evening. Hi. Will the city clerk please call a roll? Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Snyder, Mayor Natal, Councilman Moreno,
Here.
Councilman Benson, Councilwoman Carson,
Here.
Councilwoman Teeter,
Here.
Councilman Diaz,
Here.
Councilman McEldowney,
Here.
Councilman Bullock.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Will the audience please rise for a moment of silence and then join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, the city staff will pass around a microphone, and council invites everyone to introduce themselves, please.
Phil Baca, Chief of Police.
Bob Zeiler.
Sandy Carruthers, Community Enterprise.
Maxine Galindo, Community Enterprise.
Michael Cheney.
Leonard Newson.
Robert Benzel, Camp Neighborhood. Beverly Benzel, Kemp Neighborhood.
Margarita Ceballos Gomez, Community Enterprise.
Trudy Smith, Community Enterprise.
Tova Forgo.
Hannah Ewart Crocker, Community Enterprise. Crystal Elliott.
John Howard, Information Technology.
Joy Bishop.
Gene Leffel, Board of Adjustment.
Guillermo Serna.
Carolyn Keith, Parks and Recreation.
Ms. Ryan Cordero, Government Relations.
Jim Jones, South Adams County Water.
Barbara Biggs, Metro Wastewater.
Ellen Haug.
Julia Emco, Communications.
Melissa Colwait with Waste Management.
Scott Hutchings, also with Waste Management.
Priscilla Mankowski, I'm in IT and also here tonight as a housing accountant.
Ann Brumfield, Housing Authority.
Ken Conwright, Tri-County Health Department.
Melody Mascarenas, Tri-County Health Department.
Jennifer Jones, Planning.
Tracy Jones, Housing Coordinator.
Bruce Thomas, Commerce City Housing Authority.
Steve Tim, City Planner.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks to everyone for being here with us this evening. There were 2 public comment rosters made available on the table at the entrance of the council chambers for those who wish to address the council. One roster is for non-agenda items, and the second is for action items listed on the agenda. Will Sandy Carruthers please come forward? Good evening, Sandy.
Good evening. I'm Sandy Carruthers. I live at 6951 Kearney Street. Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, council members, staff, and citizens. I was really disappointed a couple weeks ago when I opened up the Hub insert in my newspaper at home and to a headline reading, and I quote, "North Commerce City should be its own city." Now, I love where I live in Commerce City, and I'm very proud to live in Commerce City. I happen to live in the core city, and I'm very happy for those of you who live in the northern tier of our city. You have a beautiful community and should be very proud of where you live. You know, both parts of our city will always have infrastructure needs, schools, businesses, shopping, recreation services needed. Some of our needs will be different, but we have many common interests and concerns also. For example, like XL Energy wanting to put a big, high-pressure pipeline right through the heart of both parts of our city. You need a grocery store, and you need other retail shopping in the northern tier. We need to maintain and improve our shopping outlets. You're getting improvements like widening 104th Avenue and some upgrades to some of your major intersections. We are finally getting the busy Monaco Street resurfaced, a good stretch of it, and it's going to be smooth riding for us, and we've been looking forward to that. You know, commerce is not a dirty word. I get really upset when that is the image people have when they hear that word. Any stable and growing community needs a solid commercial foundation. Commerce adds to a strong tax base and gives jobs for local residents. We do need dynamic economic development in both parts of our city. We don't need to be 2 separate cities. We need to become one great city. I think it's time for us to stop being divisive in our dialogue and become unified, or at least cooperative and supportive. Neither part needs to lose its identity. It's time for us to focus on finding sustainable ways to keep our city great. We all need to love where we live in Commerce City, Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. City Attorney Gaylor, I have a few people on the board, and I'm not sure exactly where the discussion from last week landed as to whether or not we're going to be, can you help me out with that?
Until the council changes its policy on citizen communication, my suggestion is you move on to the next citizen communication, unless someone wants to just say, appreciate you being here, and that's it, and you don't get involved with a question and debate dialogue.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilwoman Teeter.
Yes, I thank her for her testimony up here. Mr. Gaylor, I did not read that article. Was it signed by a citizen from Commerce City? Does anyone know that information?
I believe it was from a gentleman in the north, yes.
Okay, because I have not heard of this desire, and agree with the word commerce means money and business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Benson.
Yes, thank you also, Sandy, for those comments. You say it was just a private citizen. Did he sign his name?
I believe he did, yes. Private citizen, yes.
I would like to get that from you, Jerry, because...
It probably was in the updates that Michelle Halstead sends out, but we can specifically pull it out and send it to you.
Because whoever has that kind of a position is woefully unaware of the financial consequences of that kind of a move. It would be really a stupid thing to do. But I'd like to get the name of that person and maybe give them a call, have a talk with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock.
My question was just to ask Jerry, do you know the date of the Witch Hub date it was in?
I believe it was a couple of weeks ago. I think it was only about two. Did they come out on?
July 5th?
Yeah. So 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney.
No further comment. They've been asked.
Okay. Councilwoman Carson.
Most of the questions I had have been answered. So, Ms. Carruthers, thank you very much for your words of wisdom. And I fully agree that we are one city, and we need to learn to work together as one city. So thank you very much for coming tonight.
And I would echo those sentiments as well as everyone else on council, so thank you. Next, I have Leonard Newsom. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you too, Honorable Mayor, and also everyone on the council board too. My name is Leonard Newsom. I live at 10094 Hannibal Street. I'm here today to find out the updates on the food market in the northern part of Commerce City, and I do support, this young lady said too, we are one city, and we will be one great city too. But currently right now there is a huge need for this food market. I know we're looking for the breaking part moment sometime in September. But again, I feel very proud to come here and just want to know where we stand. You got a very loyal community up there. Is very excited about having this. So that's pretty much what I have to say today.
Thank you, sir. City Manager Flannery, do you care to give us a brief update on that?
Yes, actually, if you drive by the property today, you'll see a vegetation dust screening going up. So we are on target for next week to start the grading and site prep per the agreement. So it's on its way, and I believe that a groundbreaking will be scheduled more like the end of August rather than September.
Well, that sounds like unbelievably good news.
That's fantastic news. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Benson.
Yes, Mr. Flannery, that will be the greatest news that I have ever received since I have lived in this city. And the only thing that will top that is when that store opens for business. So I'm looking forward to both those events, the groundbreaking and the opening. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Scott Hutchings and Melissa Colwait from Waste Management. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, members of council. My name is Scott Hutchings, and I'll be also speaking for Melissa. As you know, we had some of you out this afternoon to our recycling plant, and we're hoping to have more of you out to the recycling plant. For those of you who didn't make it, we do have a gift. It's the one time you don't come and you still get a gift. This is a gift of all kinds of different things that are made out of recycling. And so we'll leave these here with the city manager, but we enjoy our partnership with you and look forward to continuing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilman Benson?
Yes, I want to thank you for inviting all of us, although it was, the night of our council meeting. And I noticed that last week when I saw that, and it makes it kind of hard. If it was any other night of this week, I'm sure I would have made it. But the night before the meeting, I've got work that I've got to get done, and, it was just an inconvenient time.
And we will have you out whenever it's convenient for you.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You bet.
Councilwoman Carson?
I also want to thank you and apologize for not being able to make it. Just can't work the schedule around. But thank you for the invitation.
Councilman Moreno?
Scott and Melissa, thanks for a wonderful tour. I'll go more in depth in my report tonight, but it was fascinating, and thank you for your hospitality.
Councilman Diaz?
Thanks again for having us. The food was great. It was an awesome tour. It got dirty, but it was a whole lot of fun. It was really cool to see, so I appreciate it, you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, I'll call Jean Leffel. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Gene Leffel, 6530 Brighton Boulevard, the Garden Terrace subdivision, established in 1922. I'd like to thank everybody that attended the Cars Club meeting last Tuesday night. Over 50 people came to talk and share ideas regarding the medical waste processing plant proposed up on Brighton Road. People seem to have a confusion between road and boulevard. I live on Boulevard, the plant's on road. Quite a lot of dialogue there. Nobody really seemed to be substantially in favor of that. It's just unbelievable. I had a gentleman call me just this Sunday, happened to be watching one of our council meetings. He lives in the Wickiup Trailer Park. His lot backs up to that site. Nobody had ever told him that was going in there. He had never even heard about it, till fortunately he saw our council meeting on TV. He called me up, asked what he could do, and I made some suggestions of things that he might be able to do to help with that. I'd like to especially thank the mayor. Although he's not here tonight, I believe he may in fact be there at their community meeting right this moment, and I hope he can come back this evening and give us a report. I wish I was there, but I wanted to be here. I did get a copy of a letter. This letter's from Adams County, July 18th, the day before our meeting. Seems as though somebody must have been paying attention along the line, because they say on here that this may not be compatible with that area. I can't imagine any area would be compatible except for maybe one in the middle of nowhere. Detrimental to the immediate area, detrimental to health. It just goes on and talks about the things that are wrong with that idea and the things that have not been addressed. I think anybody that hasn't gotten up to speed on this really should. While they're proposing that treatment facility, the hazardous biological waste treatment facility on Brighton Road, the residue from that will go somewhere. It will go to the landfill. And I can only really think of one landfill that's anywhere near that area. That would be the Tower Road landfill. I think there's a lot of people in our city that live near that Tower Road landfill that ought to be paying attention to this. Because when a batch of stuff goes out of there and it's not fully treated and it's not absolutely safe, it might end up in your own backyard. So it's wonderful the plant's far from you, but the residue from the plant may make its way a lot closer to your home. I'm just asking for people to get involved. And once again, I want to thank the 50-plus people that took time out of their evening last Tuesday night to come discuss ways to hopefully prevent this from coming to our neighborhood and our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Finally, we have Guillermo Serna. Good evening, Mr. Serna.
Good evening. Guillermo Serna, 14122 East 102nd Place, Commerce City, Colorado. I'm here because of last week. We want to be a city that's together. But a person that wanted to go to a diversified, let's say, participation of this nation's communications with the minority population was voted down in a sense. I don't care who goes, but when you commit to diversity, you have to look at what does that mean. You discuss trucking companies, leasing. Well, you have to understand what's coming before you say, we shouldn't be going here and we shouldn't be going there. If you take a look at what was passed this year, the transportation from Mexico, from South America to Canada, from Canada down to South America, it's on its way next year. And we're a place that has a lot of truckers here. We're a place that sells a lot of trucks. That's industry that could be brought into this community to bring in new jobs. It's not just one economy. We're in a worldwide economy. You guys talk about going to China, going to Germany. Well, those products have to go somewhere. And we're in the center of that transportation. That's why companies want to come here, especially trucking companies, because that's where the money's going to be. We need our kids to be prepared to be mechanics, body and fender, all that type of stuff. But we lost an opportunity because you were quarreling among yourselves and lost your way in the opportunities that are there. Interstate 70 was being discussed. Because you were at each other, you forgot the input that your administration had, that the community had, and you didn't even say thank you. That, to me, is very unforgivable from you. Because I sit here week after week and listen to you. And you want to be this and you want to be that. Well, wanting to and being are two different things. It takes commitment from all of you. It takes a little bit of spending money to know and gather the knowledge that your administration needs to be able to give you good advice. If you keep them and you keep yourselves from that knowledge, it doesn't work. You have to spend a little bit of funds in order to get it done. Your congressman, your senators need that opportunity from you, to hear from you. And in a Hispanic atmosphere, I think that you would have a lot of international people there to be able to communicate to. So take for whatever it's worth, and let's see how you can be together on some of this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman McEldowney?
I would just respond to Mr. Flannery and Mr. Gaylor and relay to Mr. Serna that the end of that discussion was clearly aimed at a policy around travel in general, not specifically disapproving Ms. Snyder's travel on that event. And I believe that the agreement from council was that discretionary funds were absolutely authorized to enable that travel. So with all due respect to the gentleman this evening, I do think there are, though, valid comments in what was said, and I'll hold my comments beyond that.
Thank you. Councilman Benson?
Yes, and I think I was probably the one that brought up the I-70 realignment. And I do apologize for not crediting our staff and our citizens who have participated in that process over the last several years. Some people have spent a lot of time going to meetings. And as a result of that, we now have the lean, L-E-A-N, as it's called at CDOT, towards the existing alignment, move north by about 100 feet. And I think that's primarily due to the input that our citizens have had and that our staff has had in that process. So we all owe a debt of gratitude to those people. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney Gaylor, we were directed, or we were giving some direction last week, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in administrative business, but are we moving forward with coming up with some idea of what a formal policy for discretionary funds is going to look like?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
In fact, there's a draft policy that I have prepared, and it's being processed now through the through the city manager's office.
Okay.
And when it's reviewed there and comments given back to me, then it'll be placed on an upcoming agenda of the city council within the near future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cerna. Okay, moving on, we have project update from Metro Wastewater and South Adams County Water and Sanitation District, and I will now ask City Manager Jerry Flannery to introduce the staff from the two to come forward and give us their update, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. I'd like to ask Jim Jones from South Adams Water and Barbara Biggs from Metro Wastewater to approach the podium.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, thank you very much. My name is Barbara Biggs. Oh, thanks. And
good evening.
Thank you. I have a short PowerPoint that I don't know how to get up on. Oh, okay. There it is. And do I just do the red button to advance the slide? Okay, great. To the right. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Again, my name is Barbara Biggs. I'm the Governmental Affairs Officer for the Metro Wastewater Reclamation District. In your council agenda packets for this meeting, you had a copy of our Northern Treatment Plant Key Stakeholder newsletter. We will be producing that newsletter semi-annually throughout the design and construction of the new plant. And we will make sure that the city manager and his staff get a copy to distribute to council when it's updated every 6 months. This is just a short presentation. What I wanted to do is go over a little bit of the background. Why are we building a northern treatment plant? What are some of the considerations we're taking into account as we design and construct that facility? What our schedule looks like, the cost estimates, and then what's that going to do to rates? Because we know there's a lot of concern about what a project of this size can do to rates throughout the Metro District service area. So first of all, the background. The map in this slide is a map of the Metro District's entire wastewater service area. The Metro District provides wastewater treatment and transmission services to 59 separate local governments throughout the metropolitan region, about 715 square mile service area with a population of about 1.7 million people. For over 4 decades, there has been plans for a second regional facility in the northern metropolitan region. The Height facility that you're all very familiar with is along the western edge of Commerce City. That's right here. The northern treatment plant will serve as that new regional facility for the northern suburbs. The northern treatment plant will provide service to the city of Brighton, the northern half of the city of Thornton, basically north of 118th, the northern portion of the South Adams County Water and Sanitation District, a small portion of the city and county, or the city of Aurora. There is also a business park out along Pena Boulevard in Denver that may go north to the northern treatment plant. The reasons for this plant is to create a new facility capable of meeting new water quality standards while at the same time offloading existing facilities, the existing South Adams County facility, the Williams-Monaco plant, and the existing Height facility so that we can provide higher level treatment at those facilities. It will also support economic development and growth. We've had tremendous support for this project among many local governments and all of the local economic development corporations, including the Commerce City Economic Development Corporation, the Adams County Economic Development Corporation. And we believe it is the most cost-effective regional solution for wastewater infrastructure in this area. The goal for the NTP is to be a community amenity. It's going to be very visible right along, the location is at the corner of Highway 85 and 168th Avenue, just north of Brighton. The site will actually be annexed into the city of Brighton. The city of Brighton and the South Adams County Water and Sanitation District have joined the Metro District, so they're members of the Metro District on the same standing as the city of Denver and the city of Aurora. We also plan to include an administration building, visitor center, and public education facility at the new plant. It's becoming increasingly difficult. We've always tried to have a very active public education program at the Height facility, but the Height facility is very large. It's almost always under construction. So it's difficult to facilitate those educational opportunities at the Height facility, so we're hoping to design that into the Northern Treatment Plant from the very beginning. The Metro District is taking sustainability as a key consideration in the design and the construction of the Northern Treatment Plant. We're in the site restoration phase. I'll talk about where we're at in the schedule, but all of the concrete that's on site is being stockpiled and will be recycled as bedding material for roads and pipelines on site. About a year ago, the district adopted a sustainability vision statement to provide local, state, and national leadership by optimizing resources to supply clean water to current and future generations. We actually have sustainability goals around the 3 pillars of the triple bottom line, environmental, economic, and social, that implement that vision statement, and we will take that into consideration throughout the design of the Northern Treatment Plant and also in our activities and upgrades at the Robert W. Height Treatment Facility here in Commerce City. Just by building the Northern Treatment Plant, we're putting forth those sustainability goals. The Northern Treatment Plant will eliminate 9 lift stations. It will consolidate 3 small wastewater treatment plants. The Brighton wastewater treatment plant will close, and 2 other small plants can be closed. As I mentioned before, it will free up room at both the Williams-Monaco facility and the Robert W. Height treatment facility to accommodate more advanced treatment processes and to also enable capacity for growth in other portions of our service areas. Another one of the Metro District's goals related to sustainability is to continue our long history of environmental stewardship. The district has a very long history of protecting the South Platte River. We have implemented river improvement projects to benefit aquatic life. We have an extensive monitoring program, not just of our effluent, but of the river as far downstream as the confluence with the St. Vrain River. So we are constantly monitoring the river. The 2 reservoirs, Bar Lake and Milton Reservoir, that are farther downstream, we have a monitoring program for those as well. And we take that response, so the point I'm trying to make is that we take our responsibility as environmental stewards very, very seriously. We also, I wanted to highlight some of the environmentally friendly practices that we've already implemented at the Height facility. The Height facility has actually had cogeneration. Methane gas is a byproduct of the wastewater treatment process. We actually built our cogeneration facility in 1985, so we've had it for over almost 26 years now. We generate about 40% of the electricity needed to run the Height facility on site, and we also generate the heat that we need for processes and building heat right there on the Height facility. And we're always evaluating ways that we can increase the efficiency of that process. So we're currently testing a co-digestion process, for example, of silage from ethanol production from corn, that we can co-digest very environmentally friendly with the wastewater solids. It increases our gas production, and it also is then recycled along with the rest of the solids, beneficially reused as agricultural fertilizer throughout Adams, Weld, Arapahoe, and Elbert counties. We have a fleet of hybrid vehicles. We are undergoing constant treatment optimization, and all of those are part of our ongoing efforts to be environmentally friendly and sustainable at the Height facility. We will continue that history at the Northern Treatment Plant. It's our intent to optimize power, natural gas, and water use. We're looking for ways to reduce chemical usage and limit greenhouse gas emissions. So, for example, we will include ultraviolet disinfection at the Northern Treatment Plant to reduce chemical usage. We also have plans within the next 20 years to transition from chemical disinfection at the Height facility to ultraviolet disinfection. We've already started in the vicinity of the northern treatment plant. We've already started or done baseline water quality monitoring, so we will continue to do monitoring of the river before and after the plant is constructed, so we can have a before and after picture. And we've incorporated a wetlands and extended channel into the treatment plant so that the effluent has time to slow down and cool off before it hits the river, and it will come back to the river looking more like a natural tributary rather than a major wastewater treatment plant outfall. Our schedule for the facility, we have been in the planning stages for this facility since 2009. We're going to finish up the planning by the end of the third quarter of 2011. We've actually already started site restoration on the site. If you've driven up Highway 85 recently, the salvage yard is gone. All of the cars are gone. We have successfully relocated 94 families from the mobile home park. They've all moved to new homes, some of them to in fact, most of them to significantly nicer homes than they had in the mobile home park that was there on the corner. We even relocated a 35-member feral cat colony successfully on the site without having to euthanize any of the cats. So site restoration is ongoing. We've auctioned off the trailers that we purchased. We are in the process right now of doing asbestos inspections. We will work cooperatively with the local fire department to do some practice burns on the site. We've worked with the Adams County Sheriff's Office and the Weld County Sheriff's Office to make the site available for SWAT team training during this, since we've purchased the site. So you'll start to see the site be cleared. We're removing utilities and decommissioning other utilities on the site right now. Pipeline design of the South Platte Interceptor will need to build an interceptor to go from basically 128th and Riverdale Road north to the site. That's an interceptor that will range in size from 42 inches at its southern end up to about 84 inches at the northern end. Communities like South Adams County, Brighton, Aurora will connect into that line as it goes north. That pipeline design has already started. We're also working on the design of an effluent pump-back force main, although we hope very much to not have to build that component of the project. The City of Thornton their water rights will be impacted by our moving the point of treatment. So one of the solutions to that would be to pump their effluent back upstream, but we are doing a joint water court. We're in water court right now with a joint application with the City of Thornton and the City of Aurora to eliminate the need for that project. We have selected CH2M Hill to be the design build team for the Northern Treatment Plant. The Metro District Board will approve their contract for preliminary services on August 16th, and we will start actual construction on the plant probably by June of 2012 with the goal of having it online in 2015. Cost estimate, here are the elements of the project. The Northern Treatment Plant facilities itself, about $365 million. The South Platte Interceptor that I mentioned is estimated to cost $71 million. The effluent pump-back system that we hope goes away, $37 million. We spent about $1.5 million on our wastewater utility plan for a site approval for the facility, for a total project cost estimate right now of $474.5 million. So what is that likely to do to rates? All of the costs associated with the Northern Treatment Plant are already incorporated into the Metro District's rate structure. And I think it's useful to understand that the way the Metro District's rate structure works is all of our costs for all of our facilities go into one big bin, if you will, and are apportioned at the same rate to all of the 59 local governments that contract with us for service. Local governments pay us for the exact amount of wastewater they treat, or they send us for treatment based on the flow and a number of pollutant loadings. Everybody pays the same rate. We don't differentiate between portions of our service area based on, is it more expensive to serve that part or that part. It's all put into one overall cash flow and apportioned. So you get the economies of scale of sharing those costs among all of the residents of the metro region. So it truly is a regional approach to rate setting and wastewater infrastructure. In the near term, about 2/3 of our capital budget is the Northern Treatment Plant, but the other third are improvements that are currently under construction at the Height facility. And the Northern Treatment Plant in particular is being financed with revenue bonds. The Metro District is a AAA-rated credit, so we have access to the bond markets at very favorable interest rates. The purpose of financing it through bonds is to mitigate the impact, short-term impacts on rates, and also to ensure, I mean, this is a facility that will serve many future generations, and they need to pay their fair share of it as part of that debt service in the future. The Metro District is proud of our current rates. Based on national surveys, our rates to the homeowners in our region are 37% lower than comparable utilities around the country. I've mentioned that we're a wholesale provider, so we bill local governments at a rate of $137 per year for wholesale for wastewater treatment. We estimate, based on the rates they charge, because each of the local governments is responsible for maintaining their own collection system within their city, that the average homeowner within the Metro District service area pays about $273 per year for wastewater service, compared with comparable utilities around the country at $436 per year. To illustrate that in another way, for 2012, the Metro District Board adopted an 8% increase in rate, but because we start from a lower number, that works out to be $20 to $21 per person. The National Association of Clean Water Agencies, or NACWA, their index projects a 8.2% average residential rate increase around the country, but because most utilities start higher, that works out to be $36 per household. And those are actually, that's an average. I can tell you horror stories about communities like Atlanta, Georgia, and Akron, Ohio, where their rates are projected to go up by hundreds of percents. I think the Atlanta had to raise rates 45% a couple of years ago to fund some of their infrastructure that they'd gotten behind on. This is just a graph that shows you what our capital expenditure schedules look like for the next 10 years. So you can see we've got a big bulge here. This is 2/3 Northern Treatment Plant, but 1/3 a $220 million project that's currently underway at the Height facility to improve our ability to treat nitrogen. One thing I want to illustrate here is, okay, the Northern Treatment Plant goes online in 2016. We immediately start adding phosphorus treatment facilities at the Height facility. So the capital improvements don't just end with the Northern Treatment Plant, but we're looking ahead at what we need to do to preserve the South Platte River and Bar Lake and Milton Reservoir well into the future with the Height facility as well. Another point I want to illustrate on rates is that the Metro District Board is required by law, state law, to adopt our budget and tell the communities that contract with us what their bill will be for the coming year no later than the end of August. Once we send out what your bill is going to be for the coming year, it doesn't change. It doesn't matter if fuel prices go up, electric rates go up, chemical costs go up. We have to live within that budget. So once you've been told by August 31st what your payment is going to be, for what your bill is for the coming year, that will never change. The only thing the board actually adopts each year is the rate increase for the next year. So when the board was discussing the 2011 budget, they adopted a 9% rate increase for 2011. At that time, we were projecting 10% increase or 11% increases, followed by several years of 9 and several more years of 6. When they did the 2012 budget, they dropped those projections. We reevaluated on an annual basis. So for 2012, rather than the 11% increase in rates that we were projecting, we had an 8% increase in rates, and we expect those to continue out through 2017. It's important to know that those rate increases are driven almost entirely by the capital projects, the capital expenditure schedule that we have, the capital improvement plan. Our operating costs for 2012 were increased 1.6% over 2011. They were reduced 1% in 2011. We have not had an increase in operating costs in several years. We've held wages at the same level. I mean, we've taken many, many steps to control our budget to the best of our ability because we know the capital projects that we can't eliminate are going to drive the rates up. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Do have a couple of questions for you. Councilwoman Teeter.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for your
welcome.
presentation. I just have a couple questions here. Having it being placed at Highway 85 and 168th Avenue, the reason being, hopefully, it's far away from residential and retail businesses. Is this correct?
There are actually properties developable properties just across 168th and just across Highway 85 from the new plant, and we're within probably a half a mile to a mile of residential areas, but I think I know where your question is going. You're concerned about odors.
Okay, that's my next question.
Okay.
What measures will you take to make sure that odors are eliminated?
At the Northern Treatment Plant, and keep in mind, we will be implementing many of these same measures at the Height facility over time. But at the Northern Treatment Plant, from the get-go, all of the odor-generating portions of the plant will be covered, the air will be captured and scrubbed before it's released. So I might be able to go back to the aerial. Over half the facilities on the plant will actually be covered and have the air scrubbed so that there shouldn't be any significant odors near the site. We're doing everything in our power to mitigate those odors.
And so the property that's within a mile or so, it's not even been built yet, is that correct?
We've been working with the owners that are developing it, yes.
Okay.
So they know it's coming, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so a potential home buyer in that area would already know that this facility was there before they even purchased a house there?
We will do everything in our power. There will be signs saying
Okay.
future home of. The newsletter goes out to everybody we can possibly get it out to. We have a website. So yes, we are trying to do our best. But we have been working, there's the old Western Sugar where they put the beet process waste. There's a big open field just to the south of where the plant will go, and we've been working very closely with the current landowner and the developer who currently has an option on that property, so that they know exactly what's coming, what they can expect it to look like, and what they can expect.
Well,
it
it
to
sounds
smell.
like you're being very transparent. Thank you.
We're trying very hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney.
Hi, Ms. Biggs. Good to see you.
Hi,
It's
Jim.
been, I guess, since our last Adams County Water Quality Association
Yeah.
meeting. So a couple comments on this. Obviously, have been tracking this since I joined the Adams County Water Quality Association on council and first met you, I guess, close to 3 or 4 years ago now. And it's been neat to see the evolution. This update was thorough, very thorough, and I appreciate the added detail here. I think some additional insight that I haven't seen in some of the updates to DRCOG or to Aqua. So I think my comment to the public would be, as the answer to Ms. Teeter's question just went, the planning on this has been exceptional, and your communication with each of the bodies that you obviously have to work with, which includes, for folks' information, the Adams County Water Quality Association, which includes Commerce City, South Adams Water, Brighton, and obviously Denver Wastewater, it has been consistent, regular. Obviously, the application to DRCOG was extensive, and so just really appreciate the effort that you've put forth. You know, one of the things I remember hearing when I first got on council 4 years ago was just how critical this northern treatment plant was to growth of the collective northern range, including Commerce City, Brighton, and Points North. And it seemed like it was a long way off 4 years ago, and here we are talking about very definitive dates and a plan that I think puts forward a wastewater treatment plant that kind of changes people's opinions of what a wastewater treatment plant looks like. And trust me, as I bike around the metro area, and whether it's the Platte or Clear Creek, and you encounter the various sites out there, I'm eager to see how this takes shape and obviously how the Height facility evolves over time, given some of that new technology. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for your kind comments. And if I could add, if you bike, we are in the final design stages of the first major odor control project at the Height facility. So hopefully, as you drive north and south on York, you'll see a distinct improvement, probably within the next year.
The construction is obvious as you pedal past there now, and the new bridge.
The new bridge,
that's in,
yeah.
Yes, so the change is coming, which is great.
I assume we're not very popular with auto salvage yards. If you haven't driven up and down York, there were 2 auto salvage yards on the old Litvak site, and we've now purchased that, landscaped it, and added a second bridge into the Height facility that you approved the amendment to our
About a
plan.
year and a half
Yeah,
ago,
about
I
a
guess
year
you approved
ago,
that.
yeah.
Yep. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Carson.
Just one quick question. You had mentioned some of the lift stations were going to be closed down. There's one that was put in at 120th, right around the high school area. Is that one going to remain, or is that?
120th? That would be one of yours, wouldn't it? 120th and Brighton Road?
Oh, I was thinking more like Peoria. Or, there was that sign put up, I don't know, 2 years ago, and had all the parents all upset that it was going in there, but it's So it's closer to Prairie View High School.
Isn't that a Brighton facility?
Is that what it
Brighton
is?
facility?
That is a Brighton lift station, so
It's-
it really depends on, one of the potential partnerships is for Brighton to join us on the Second Creek, what we call the Second Creek Interceptor, that's going to go down Second Creek and join into the Metro Interceptor. If Brighton were to participate in that, then that lift station likely would go away.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and Councilman Moreno.
Thank you for your presentation. Quick question about, if I heard correctly, at the Height facility, you will be processing more phosphorus?
We'll be removing phosphorus. Right now, we don't do any phosphorus removal at the Height facility. We have been participating for the last 6 years in a Bar Milton Watershed Association. It's a consortium of environmental community, regulators, and other concerned local governments about water quality in Bar Lake. And we just completed, it's been a 6-year, $1 million effort. The Metro District actually took responsibility for all of the monitoring. So we do all the monitoring on the lake. That's one of our contributions in addition to some other contributions. That study has shown that phosphorus removal is needed throughout the region upstream of Bar Lake. So we will, as soon as we've finished the northern treatment plant and the nitrogen removal improvements that are currently under construction at the Height, we will then get started on phosphorus removal facilities.
Gotcha. And you partially answered this question in your comments to Councilman McEldowney, but will that new removal of phosphorus, will that have any implications for odor mitigation at that site?
The phosphorus removal facilities won't add to the odor, but we did do about, I want to say in 2008, we completed a comprehensive odor study of the Height facility, and we identified and prioritized all of the sources of odor at the Height facility. And the Height facility is a large facility. It's 220 million gallons per day. So we are now we're into the implementation stage of that process. We will have we are finishing up design of our first major odor control facility at the Height facility, and then we have other odor control facilities in our capital expenditure schedule as we go through time. So they will be implemented through time in a manner that addresses both the community concerns about odor and the community concerns about rates. It's a delicate balance. We have to balance what we need to build for regulatory drivers, what we need to build, for concerns like odor to be better neighbors, but we also have to maintain, keep our rates at a level that people can afford, especially in these tough economic times.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I'm Jim Jones, District Manager for South Adams County Water and Sanitation District, and I'm here for two purposes tonight. The first one is to voice our support for the Northern Regional Treatment Plant, and to give a little history and perspective from South Adams' perspective. And then staff has asked us to give you a report on a new administrative office that we're in the process of designing right now. As far as the Metro facility from South Adams' perspective, as council is aware, back in 2008 and early 2009, we did a thorough evaluation of the opportunities that we had as far as our future wastewater treatment. We had three opportunities. One was to continue to do all the wastewater treatment ourselves, either at the Williams-Monaco plant or to build a second plant and have two wastewater plants. We had a second choice to partner up with the city of Brighton and do a mini regional facility with Brighton and South Adams. And then the third alternative was the northern treatment plant, where all of the regional partners work with Metro to build that plant. When we evaluated it, the key thing was the cost effectiveness of the alternatives. As Barbara pointed out, $457 million is a very expensive program. It wouldn't have been quite that much for us, but it would have been easily $100 million, and $100 million split amongst one user is a lot tougher to handle than 457 that's split between 59 users. So it was very apparent that it was more cost effective for us to join the regional solution, and we wholeheartedly support it, and we think it's the best solution, and it's going to meet the long-term regulatory requirements that the state clearly is going to apply to all the wastewater users on the lower South Platte River. We do have one concern with the project right now. As you saw in Barbara's presentation, there was a $37 million item for a pump back line. The purpose of this line, as Barbara mentioned, is to pump the treated wastewater effluent credits of the city of Thornton back upstream of 104th and the Platte River, which is upstream of the Fulton Ditch. Thornton needs to get their water rights back to that position so that they don't have any effects on downstream users. Thornton and Aurora have tentatively, and Metro have tentatively worked out an agreement where Aurora is going to trade Thornton credits. Thornton would still get Aurora's credits at the old Height facility where Thornton's credits historically happened, and Aurora would take Thornton's credits at the new plant. So everybody's held whole, and it seems like it's a good solution, and it's ultimately going to work. That is currently in an application before the Water Court in Greeley, and I'm sure Barbara could tell you a long story about her frustration with the Water Court process. You send those applications in, you get about 40 objectors, and you have to work through all the objectors to get approvals and finally a decree. So she's got her work ahead of her and a long process ahead of her. Our concern is that they're still moving forward at a rapid pace, designing that pump back line and getting the environmental approvals. And I understand why Metro has to do that. They want to make sure that they can get everything built and online by 2015, which is their commitments. We would ask Metro and we would ask Thornton and we'd ask all the participants to think about that, because it's not good for us, it's not good for the city of Commerce City, it's not good for Thornton, it's not good for anybody to spend a significant amount of that $37 million if we ultimately aren't going to have to. So we would ask all the participants, and I'm asking you to talk to your counterparts at Thornton and Adams County and anybody you can to talk about this and see if there's a way we can slow that process down so that we aren't expending money that we hopefully will never have to spend. That's our big concern. Our other concern with that project is it's basically going to come straight down on the east side of the Platte River, basically down the Brighton Road corridor. South of 120th Avenue, we have a lot of proposed water and sewer lines in there, and that line's going to be in competition with everything that we have planned in that corridor, and we'd really rather it not be there and be in conflict with what we're trying to do for the city of Commerce City needs. So I just wanted you all to be aware of that. It is a major concern for us. Again, it's not a small component. It's $37 million, so that could have a big impact on everybody's rates and fees, and we'd just like to see if it can be avoided. Let's give ourselves some more time to work through the process. Any questions on the northern plant?
Councilman Bullock.
Yes, in the design phase for this $37 million line, what is the cost of the design phase that we would have to absorb if it was never used?
Barbara's going to have to answer that for us.
I think I have. I think I actually have the dollar amount.
I don't know what she's doing, but my phone wouldn't do that.
About $2 million for the total cost of designing the $37 million. Sorry, Madam Pro Tem, Barbara Biggs from the Metro District.
No
if
problem.
I need to for the record.
Yeah.
The design cost for the effluent pump back would be about $2 million of that $37 million. And I would point out that in order to give the Water Corp process as much time as possible, we've pushed back starting on the preliminary design of the effluent pump back line until later this year. So we've already started preliminary design of the South Platte interceptor, the gravity interceptor to get the wastewater to the new plant, but we've pushed back starting the effluent pump back design until late this fall. Unfortunately, we have an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Thornton that says we have to have that effluent pump back online before we can start treating Thornton's wastewater at the plant. So that it makes it, on day one, the most flow that'll go to the northern treatment plant will be the flow that we currently pump from the northern part of Thornton back to the Height facility.
In a follow-up question, in water court, just like Jim said, there's, before anything starts, even though everybody agrees that's out of water court, once it gets to water court, anybody wants to protest it, can protest it. Have you submitted how many protesters have come forward?
We filed our application on April 29th. Statements of opposition were due by June 30th. We had 23 objectors. There were originally 24, but thank you, Commerce City actually withdrew. So we appreciated Commerce City withdrawing their opposition, and a lot of those 23, like South Adams County filed a statement of opposition, but it's a friendly, I'm assuming, friendly statement of opposition. But we had 23 statements of opposition. We did just last week send out to all of the objectors to the water court application a preliminary engineering report that shows that the effluent trade would not result in any harm to the river. We also sent out a white paper describing the purpose and need for the northern treatment plant and describing the growth that's projected to occur in the rest of Metro service area. The Height facility is not going anywhere, and there will continue to be growth in the Height facility, the service area that's treated at the Height. So the river there will be more flow in the river in the future than there is now, even with the northern treatment plant. So all of those materials went out to those 23 objectors Monday of last week, and we will now start the process of contacting them individually and trying to discern what their issues are and if we can negotiate through those issues.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Teeter.
Yes, Jim, mine is very quick. Is there any way I can get your contact information? Because I would like to discuss this $37 million pump back line, getting some of the history and knowledge in back of it. We will be having an AdCog dinner on Wednesday night with Brighton and Thornton being there as well. And don't want to spoil the whole dinner, but at least I can maybe talk to some of them about this.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a card with you?
I don't, but I'll leave the information with staff here.
Okay, and I have mine here if you'd like to give me a call.
I'll give you a call.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman McEldowney.
My questions were addressed. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being here. Did you have anything else to add?
I did. Staff also asked me to give council an update on our administrative offices. Again, as council's aware, our administrative office is at 6595 East 70th Avenue, which is generally 70th and Magnolia. The old building was built in the mid-50s, so it's been there 55-plus years. It's been through a lot of expansions and remodels. And in 2009, we determined that we needed to do some more. We needed more work area. We knew we needed to do some electrical work, some mechanical work, some plumbing. And so we brought some engineers in to look, can we do one more expansion? And they basically said, to get up to code, it's going to cost you twice the amount to do the remodel and the expansion. You might as well just tear it down and start over or find a new site. So with that news, this is something that the district's been talking about and planning for about 20 years. So the board finally said, okay, it's been long enough. We need to start looking for the opportunity to build a new site. So what they did in 2010 is we went through a site selection process. We were looking at everything from lease option to purchase, and purchase outright. We looked up north. We looked at Victory Crossing. We looked at our existing site. And the criteria that the board used in this process was first to determine a cost-effective approach, maintain an effectual presence with the historical portion of the district service area, create a welcoming environment for all district customers, current, future, north and south, find a site with good accessibility for the public that would adequately meet the current administrative functions of the district while allowing for some modest enlargements in the future. So after they went through that process, considered several sites, they decided to keep it on the historic site. We're going to keep it at 6595 East 70th Avenue. We're really excited about it. With some of the things that the city's involved with the Derby improvements and some of the improvements along 72nd Avenue, we think this is also going to be an improvement for the old neighborhood, and it's going to be something that the neighbors are going to be proud of and anxious to come to and use. One thing we're going to do is we want to make sure that we involve the public. We're going to send out notifications to the local neighborhood so that we can invite them to participate in a charrette process and give us their ideas and concepts on what they'd like to see in that building, because we want it to be, we want it to work well with the neighborhood and be functional in that neighborhood and not cause any problems for anybody. So we're excited about it. We've had several meetings with different districts, our city staff. Staff's been very helpful in the process. They've been working with us, giving us lots of good ideas and things to think about. So we just wanted you to be aware of that. We'll definitely keep you updated with where we're at in the process, and if you'd like to be involved or give us any comments, by all means, let us know.
Thank you. Councilman Moreno?
Jim, just wanted to say I think that's really exciting news. I know a lot of residents in the area had concerns about, because usually, some of the residents still go and religiously drop off their water payment instead of mailing it or paying it in another form. So that's really exciting news. And you guys were always really great when I was in high school and letting us use that facility to make homecoming floats. So fond memories there. So I appreciate it.
Not to mention the kids that go and skateboard in your parking lot after hours. Having lived across the street for many years from your facility, I saw a lot of things go on over there. So I appreciate your presentation, and I have no more questions on the board, so thank you for being here this evening. Thanks, Mr. Jones. Next, we have an update from Tri-County Health Department on the former Rocky Mountain Arsenal remediation project. I will now ask City Manager Flannery to introduce the staff from Tri-County to please come forward with an update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. This gentleman needs no introduction. Mr. Ken Conwright.
No, he doesn't. Good evening, Mr. Cartwright.
Good evening,
How are
Mayor
you?
Pro Tem, City Council members. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. And again, we're going to sort of tag team this. So myself and Melody Mascarenas this evening want to come to you and talk about and report to you on the oversight activities carried out by Tri-County Health Department to ensure that the United States Army is implementing the $2.3 billion RMA remediation project in conformance with the record of decision and the certificate of designation issued by Adams County. Tonight we want to cover these particular topics, a little bit of RMA history. Again, a lot of you know that as well as anybody. We want to talk about our water sampling program, the Army retained lands, the status of the landfills and the covers, the former Basin F cover, the miscellaneous structures Phase 4, which was actually the last demolition project on the Arsenal, monitoring and maintenance, reviews of documents, milestones, civic improvements, and future oversight activities where we'll get into what happens in the future, long-term care plans, long-term monitoring plans, and things like that. Certainly feel that the Rocky Mountain Arsenal has been part of Commerce City for a very long time, and just again for folks, just to refresh your memory, I'd like to just touch on these sort of significant milestones. I think a couple of council members I briefed some time back, and there's certainly many more than these. But again, started in 1942, actual manufacturing ceased in 1982. Shell Chemical had leased portions of the arsenal for chemical production from starting in 1952. In 1987, the site was listed as an EPA Superfund site. 1992, the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge Act was signed, which again directed how the property would be used into the future. The Record of Decision, which again is the guidance document that guides the cleanup, says how the cleanup will be done and what will be done, was signed in 1996. But some of you may remember that there were 13 remedial actions that occurred prior to the signing of the Record of Decision. They were called interim response actions. for some of you historic folks, certainly the 1988 Basin F odor issue occurred during one of those interim response actions, but and the landfill certificate of designation was issued by Adams County in 1997. Without question, one of the high points, I think, of my public health career was the amount of citizen input that went into the remediation at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. This was the first Department of Defense site that had as much public input as this particular site, and is now this type of public input is used as a template throughout the country at Department of Defense and other military bases. Citizens, and again, this was the water district, this was the fire department, this was the school district, this was Citizens Against Contamination, this was as many people as we could muster. They wanted to minimize impact on the community, have a timely remedy, 10-year remedy, which really became very close to a cost-effective remedy, use proven technology, use disposal methods that met current standards, isolating and stabilizing waste on site. Now, the number one certainly concern and interest of the community was to have a safe water supply, and to that I want to spend a little time on Tri-County's involvement and certainly South Adams' involvement in assuring a safe water supply to the community. Back in 1974, there were some citizen concerns and complaints to Tri-County regarding possible contamination of their wells off the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. We really didn't know what was going on at the time. Again, 1974, the Rocky Mountain Arsenal was a secure military facility. They weren't very interactive with the citizens or with local public health officials. But we started, convinced them that something was going on. They agreed to it. That's when Tri-County started our what we call 360 monitoring program. We were looking all the way around the arsenal to see where water was going, where groundwater was, and if there was contamination. 1988 to 1990, we developed our private well database. We had over 750 wells in that database that we were able to identify and categorize and test it for contamination. 1992 to 1998, it was obviously by that point in time that there was contamination off-site. Some people, their sole source of drinking water was a private well, a shallow well, which did have contamination. So we had a bottled water program that we administered that people were provided bottled water for drinking purposes. 1998, the Alternative Water Supply Program, which we participated with South Adams County Water and Sanitation District in. There was right at 140 taps that were provided by the Army, that the Army paid for citizens of Adams County and Commerce City to be hooked on to a public water supply so they would have a safe drinking water supply for them. Program that we do and will continue to do into the future, certainly 20 or 30 years from now, is the Contaminant System Remediation Goals Sampling Program, which is to see that the treatment facilities that are on the arsenal that are treating the water that's going off the arsenal to acceptable standards or to meeting the goals of the Safe Drinking Water Act. And again, we will continue our private well sampling program into the future. Now, Melody will give you some details on some specific projects that have gone on at the Arsenal and kind of where we are today, so she'll take over now.
Hi, good evening. So now I'd like to frame the discussion of where the remedy is now, and this is a map showing currently what the arsenal looks like. And I don't have a pointer, so I'm just going to go by the colors on there to kind of tell you what we're looking at. As Ken mentioned, the groundwater continues to be run through the pump and treatment systems below standards before going off-site, and that's the yellow portion at the top of the slide. Those are our pump and treatment systems up there at the top, those little slivers. And currently, the superficial remediation is done, and the focus is now turned towards operation and maintenance. And the Army Army retained area is also in the central portion. You'll see it's there that central area. That is the integrated cover system, which incorporated several projects. North of that, we have the hazardous waste landfill and the enhanced hazardous waste landfill. Just a little west of that, another yellow area is the Basin F waste pile. We're going to discuss those further in the presentation. And in summary, the Army's maintained area is about approximately 3 square miles to be retained by the Army. And that leaves in the green the refuge land around 5,000 acres that's been transferred to Fish and Wildlife. And that has the new Refuge Visitor Center, which I'm sure many of you visited already, in the corner over there. We have the Bison area, which is the brown, and that's going to be moving further down a little bit further on south on the on that refuge area. And then in the corner, the Commerce City Prairie Gateway, which is now, you can access the new visitor center through that, and that's about 800 acres. So just to roughly give you a frame of where the remedy is now. So the hazardous waste landfill was one of the first landfills completed on the site, and it's been determined operational and functional. Tri-County participates in monthly inspections on the site, and we go out and we take gators, which are stooped-up ATVs, and go out and take them on monthly and semi-annual inspections and go out on this cover of the landfill, look at the drainage channels, which you'll see are the gray areas here, this aerial photo, those lines on the sides of the landfill. And that's made with articulated concrete block. We take a look at that. We get up on the top of the landfill, look around, make sure, check the grass, see how things are growing, look at the fence around the landfills to see how they are. So basically, we spend several hours out there looking at the covers on the landfills and also the integrated cover system. This landfill holds about 2.2 million cubic yards of waste, and that was from all the demolition on the site, mainly, except Basin F waste pile and a few miscellaneous projects. But this took south plants, north plants, and all the underlying soil below those projects. It received the higher level contaminated waste. Basin A, which is south of there, was the consolidation area which took the less contaminated waste. And the ELF, the enhanced landfill, took the more contaminated waste, and we'll talk about that next. It's a very protective landfill, 1,000-year design, state-of-the-art. There are 13 layers of true landfill layers on this landfill. The next landfill, which is just south of there, is the enhanced hazardous waste landfill, which on that map we saw earlier was that yellow shaded area. This has also been determined operational and functional. Again, Tri-County participates in monthly inspections on this site. And in the photo, the aerial photo, it looks a little brown, but it's a lot greener now with all the recent rains we've had, and this was a photo taken last year, so we didn't have an updated one to put in here. Again, the drainage channels, you can see the gray areas on the sides, again, that articulated concrete block. And we'll go out on the landfill, take a look at things. We'll look at the fencing around the landfill, any type of problems they're having. The RVO's addressed right away if we've seen any issues with the landfills. Overall, things are going really great out there. This, as I mentioned, took the higher level contaminated waste from the Basin F waste pile project. So this landfill opened in April of 2006. And took all the waste from the Basin F waste pile project, and that ended in March of 2008, and the landfill closed shortly after that. It was about 1.3 million cubic yards of waste was placed in this landfill. And the enhanced hazardous waste landfill, which we like to call the ELF, is the acronym for this one, took the more contaminated waste. And we're working on some miscellaneous final reports for this, but for the most part, everything is finished with this project also. Just some paperwork to wrap up. The next project, which was in that central area, we like to call the central mediation area, the Arsenal, was the integrated cover system. And for a long time, it was probably the largest construction project in Adams County. We have over 773 acres of cover in the integrated cover system. And Tri-County participates in monthly and semi-annual inspections of the cover. It will be determined operational and functional. It takes about 5 years for all the vegetation growth on that, and that's approximately the time frame we're looking at right now. The the covers are state-of-the-art, and we go to different conferences, and these covers are discussed and talked about, and they're considered a test case. They're looked at and discussed, and just how well the growth's gone on these covers. And I'll go on to the next slide of when an earlier photo back in 2009, just to give you an idea. This was in that central portion of the arsenal again, and this is the Basin A area that we talked about, the consolidation area. In the corner over there, you see shelled trenches. That was the first cover that was placed, and you can't really tell, but it's actually green in this photo. And that was the first cover, and it's done very well. We have lime basins and south plants. So this is that huge cover area, the integrated cover system, and this is what it looks like more currently today. This was a photo taken last year, and at this time it's even more lush with all the rain we've had, but because as I mentioned, the RCRA equivalent covers, the design that went into this and the time that was spent on this, the covers are well established before the rainfall. They're functioning as designed, and they've done really well, and they've been engineered as designed. The Basin F cover is another cover on the site that was just to the west of the landfills. And just to give you an idea of what this cover looks like today, again, doing really well with the drainage channels, our monthly inspections. We've gone out on this site. There's no moisture in the lysimeters when we take a look at it. And then moving on, you may have heard this before, but as Ken mentioned, one of the last structure demolitions on the project was the CERCLA wastewater treatment building. And that was under the miscellaneous structures project, and that debris was disposed off site. And once again, as we've always done on the RMA project, is recycling, and that building was recycled 240 tons of steel. And as you can see, this is what the building looked like. A lot of steel was used in that, and that's been an effort all along on our project, was trying to recycle and reuse whatever we could. If you remember, one of the layers on the RCRA equivalent covers was the biota barrier, which was the old Stapleton runway concrete material they used to keep the badgers out. So I don't know if you've seen any of these photos before, but they're pretty good. This is one of the last buildings that was taken down there at the Arsenal from the CERCLA wastewater treatment facility. And again, we're really proud of the effort that Tri-County's put in on this project. The other thing that we're involved in, again, was the monitoring maintenance, just to give you a little bit more detail about the oversight and what we're doing out there. We participate in these cover inspections and assessments. We go out on the percolation measurements, look at the lysimeters under the covers that measures the moisture that goes through the covers. We participate in routine cover maintenance and repairs as far as like observing those. And weed control is very important. Make sure that no noxious weeds get out there on these covers. They spent a lot of time in picking a native seed mix that would be similar to what the original prairie was like out there on the Arsenal. And again, the caps and covers are performing the way they were designed to perform, and then they're going to endure the test of time. And you can see in these pictures here, we show some Fish and Wildlife people out there IDing the grasses, taking a close look at those. Some irrigation work over here on the left side, and then some of our people out on the covers inspections in the bottom photo. Another part of our program is reviewing originally designed documents, and now we're into more post-closure plans and operation and maintenance plans. And over the life of the project, Tri-County's reviewed hundreds of documents to ensure the protectiveness of the remedy for the Adams County citizens. We look over these documents very thoroughly. We look over site and project-wide documents, post-remedy documents, and the most recent one we reviewed was the Remedial Action Summary Report document. We sent comments on that last week. And that was a document that wrapped up all the projects, all the smaller ones, bigger ones. It's good reading if you want a good overview of the project as a whole. It's about 1.5 inches thick, but we submitted comments on that last week on that document, and it'll be out for, again, fairly soon and after that. So Ken's going to continue with milestones and civic improvements.
Melody mentioned that we certainly review and comment on all the documents that were prepared, designs, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing is Tri-County staff are virtually on-site at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal daily to assure that the construction and completion of the projects are protective as well. Well, certainly, I hope all of you have had a chance to see the new visitor center, the access via Prairie Parkway. Great accomplishment. I don't know if you all have had the opportunity or the citizens at large. I encourage you all to take a public tour now conducted by the Fish and Wildlife Service. They have their new tram route in place. It's very impressive. You get a chance, and again, to see the caps, the covers, and everything else, how well they're performing. You were very proud of that. Certainly, I think the city should be proud of the fact, and the school district as well. Certainly, the building we're in this evening, the beautiful Adams City High School, the Rapid Stadium, the youth soccer fields are certainly testaments to reuse of property and what positive impact it can have on a community. So into the future, as I mentioned earlier, that we want to make sure that people are aware of and don't get the feeling that they're just going to turn the lights out over there one of these days and nobody will ever know whatever happened or anything else like that. We continue, again, construction completion reports. We're working on completing the exit strategy, which was a strategy we came up with over the years to say these are the things that we need to get done before we get into operation and maintenance of the facility. The land use control plan, which a lot of you are aware of as far as uses on the property, the building restrictions, the residential restrictions, the use of groundwater, the consumption of fish from the fishing program, things like that are in place. And then the other thing that we really worked on and have worked on is into the future when other people come onto the site to do the job we're doing and you're doing and whatever, there's a guideline or there's something in place that people can refer back to and say, how do we move forward? How do we make sure that the remedy is protected, that there's still no exposure pathway, that the 1,000-year criteria that the citizens expected is still being followed? So it's called the long-term environmental management system, and that's sort of the overwhelming document or guidance for this set of items below it, which is the long-term care plan, the long-term monitoring plan, the 5-year reviews, which are required by EPA that all Superfund sites have at least a review every 5 years to see if the remedy is protective, and the post-closure monitoring. As I mentioned, we will continue to monitor off-site to make sure the treatment systems, the remediation goals are being met, that citizens don't have contamination in their wells, all of that. So there is a program in place, and certainly the Army in Tri-County and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and EPA are on board to make sure that the protectiveness is continued and that the citizens of Adams County and Commerce City should not have concerns about the protectiveness of the remedy into the future. As I mentioned, we will continue to partner with the Rocky Mountain Arsenal to provide updates, and we really have in mind, as things kind of wind down, to come back to you all again with folks from the Arsenal on a pretty much an annual basis to say, here's what's going on, here's what's gone on. Hopefully it's a pretty short presentation, but nonetheless, as council folks change, as staff change and whatever, we want to continue that relationship, and again, the partnership with Commerce City. And so we will do an update for Commerce City, an update for the Adams County Commissioners as required under the certificate of designation, and for any other citizens groups or community groups that are interested in what's going on. We're happy to do that at any time, as well as the Army. The Army is in the process currently of selecting who will be the operations and maintenance contractor. That'll probably be done by the fall. We would envision coming back to you all and kind of, and again with in Charlie Sharman and Charlie Sharman with the Army, Roger Shakely with Shell will certainly be part of that. They're on. We're able to take some vacation time. That's why they're not here this evening. But again, we like sometimes to come to you all just as we have tonight, where we can you can ask questions that you'd like to. So again, we'd hope to come back and visit with you again in the fall, kind of talk about again some sort of final, not final, but ongoing plans to take us into the future, get you to meet the O&M contractor, allow the Army to explain to you how their presence will remain at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal into the foreseeable future. And again, as mentioned, we're happy to go to other meetings as we're called upon, Rotaries, BPA, et cetera. So with that, thank you for your time, and we would certainly entertain any questions that you all have at this point in time.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We do have a couple of questions for you. Councilman Bullock.
Ken Melody, I want to thank you for this update, because it not only informs the council, it informs the citizens of Commerce City that see this of exactly what's going on out there and what is going to go on in the future as far as the wildlife refuge is as it closes down and we finish the remediation. And to let them know that we have a state-of-the-art visitor center out there, and we want everybody to come out and see it, because they don't know what they're missing till they come out for a tour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney.
Again, I would echo Mr. Bullock's comments. Thank you both. It's kind of tough, I guess, to maintain perspective on just how much work has gone on that site. Having only been in council for 4 years and sort of being exposed to things at the state they were in when I came on board, and seeing how quickly things have really moved even in that last several years, the visible progress is just unbelievable. But I think it's important for folks to understand just how many people, again, and reinforce how many people, again, have had a hand in bringing things to this point. Obviously, Tri-County has played such a critical and central role in that all along the way. So again, thank you for your update tonight. I think it's great, to Mr. Bullock's point, to hear these updates and know that the care for this project continue on into the future, and the role that Tri-County will continue to play in keeping the citizens safe. It's the technology out there is unbelievable. I mean, hearing from you guys and from Charlie Sharman and those guys along the way, it's great to know what's there. I think it's helpful for the citizens to have that reinforced and know that you have that ongoing role. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Teeter.
Yes, thank both of you. It's kind of sad in a way that we have to bring closure to this. I've sat on the board with both of you. Well, I've sat next to you, Tim, for 11 years, watching the process and the remediation take place to make sure it's done safely and correctly. All the entities that work together, it's unbelievable what a super fun site turned into, this beautiful U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge. So thank you for updating the public and the rest of the council on this.
Thank you. Councilman Moreno.
I've been fortunate enough to attend a couple of your briefings that you gave for council members, and I just want to thank you for always keeping us well informed and in the loop about what's going on at the refuge. It's, really exciting opportunities that go on there. I did have a question. Obviously, at the refuge, there's no shortage of prairie dogs, and I was curious that if there's any concern at all about the natural cover ever being permeated by prairie dogs.
they mentioned that biota barrier material that they put is one of the layers on the wicker equivalent covers, and it prevents burrowing animals from getting into the material. And there's several layers there, but that's one of those layers to prevent that. And I don't know.
And the monthly inspections, people are out there all the time, and there is a control program plan that they have to address the issue if they get invaded. Because they don't want, that was part of the requirements, is that not occur.
Great, thank you.
Councilman McEldowney?
Just a follow-on comment to Mr. Moreno. I totally understand the technology with the biota barrier and the actual penetration into the containment areas. I guess the concern I think I heard in Mr. Moreno's comments that I would have as well, and it's an ongoing comment from our citizens, as we see the population of prairie dogs on site start to bleed off site more dramatically. Where they take hold, they tend to eviscerate the ground cover. And so I think the concern is, from a Tri-County perspective, potentially the erosion. And if we lose the ground cover that's been placed and the natural grasses that have been reseeded in these areas, because of the prairie dogs, when they come in and they get so invasive, it does tend to obliterate the existing ground cover.
Right. And again, certainly that's a high priority and topic of discussion quite often. And there is a plan in place, as I said, and the inspections that occur really are designed to prevent that sort of thing from happening, particularly on the caps and covers. Now, the outlying fringe areas, which are the refuge area managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service, again,
different criteria.
It's a partnership. It's a partnership. Nobody's one side or the other, but certainly some of their areas do have issues with prairie dogs, and again, they're concerned about it too, even on their properties. So they're working on it. And
appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilman Moreno?
Just to follow up to Councilman McEldowney, that's exactly what I was sort of getting at, and obviously this is a question more for the staff of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but there are a lot of property owners that surround the refuge in Commerce City that do have concerns about the prairie dogs moving off-site, off of the refuge, and developing colonies out inside our city limits. Particularly, just driving down Quebec, I saw prairie dogs already burrowing in the city right-of-way where we have grass planted. So obviously that's more of a question for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but just making sure that we effectively manage the prairie dog population, because it can become a nuisance for some.
Right. And Commerce City staff, I know, are in constant communication with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service regarding that issue. And it's not an easy task, but certainly it's one that they're up for the challenge to address.
Thank you very much again for both of you coming this evening and for your presentation. Having lived right down the street, literally, from the Arsenal all my life, I have just witnessed an amazing transformation of what's taken place out there, and there just aren't even words to describe how the changes have come along over the years and what it's developed into. So it's just really amazing, and I want to thank you both for all your work and everyone out there that's been a part of this long, long process. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening. Next, we come to the Neighborhood USA conference briefing. I will now ask City Manager Flannery to introduce staff from Community Enterprise to please come forward for the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. I'd like to ask Christy Joplin Martin to come up. She's the Executive Director for Community Enterprise.
Good evening again. I'm not Christy. I'm Sandy Carruthers again. So I was one of your Commerce City neighbors who went to the NUSA conference in Alaska. And let me tell you, we have a pin story to tell you tonight and a pin to give to you. So good evening again once, everyone.
Good evening.
Christy is going to bring up and pass around to you a shadow box that will show you just a small sample of the trading pins we received at NUSA. And I want you to know the Commerce City pin was really a premium pin there. So we thank you again, the council and the city, for the generous supply of pins you gave us to take all the way to Alaska. These really are excellent icebreakers for making networking connections and introducing yourself to other people. We had our Commerce City neighbor button on, and we also proudly wore our Commerce City pin. And our conference name badges, of course, had our name on it and said that we were from Commerce City, Colorado. All throughout the meetings, we were asked, where is Commerce City, Colorado? And we'd respond with something like, oh, it's just north of Denver, Colorado. And that would usually start opening up the conversation, and we'd get comments about how beautiful our state is. And we were able to tell our story and start learning the stories from the other cities. So this we did all through the conference. The morning we were leaving the hotel, I noticed a couple sitting in the lobby, and I didn't recognize them from the NUSA conference. You really got to know who was there, because a lot of us were staying in the same place. So I had my Commerce City buttons and pins on, but they were covered up by the jacket that I was going to wear to the airport. So I walked up to this couple and introduced myself and asked where they were from. They happened to be from North Carolina, and they were going on one super Alaska trip. I would have liked to stayed with them and saw some of the sites they were going to go to. They, of course, asked me, where are you from? Instead of, as I had all week, I said, oh, I'm from the Denver, Colorado area. The gentleman said, now how close is that to Commerce City? Now, how ironic is that? I went all the way to Alaska, met someone from North Carolina, and they knew Commerce City better than they knew Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
Now I'm going to introduce Margarita Ceballos Gomez, and she's going to introduce the rest of our Team of 10 report.
Thank you, Sandy. Good evening. As Sandy mentioned, I'm Margarita Ceballos Gomez, and I'm the Bilingual Neighborhood Outreach Coordinator for Community Enterprise. Before I start this brief PowerPoint presentation, I want to thank the Denver Foundation and Community Enterprise for their past and current support in sending our active neighbors to the NUSA conference. Neighborhoods USA is building stronger communities. NUSA provides opportunities for diverse people and organizations to share their ideas, values, and experience to build stronger communities. Since May of 2008, Community Enterprise became one of its affiliates. At NUSA, Commerce City represents Colorado, as it's the only city in Colorado that's affiliated with NUSA. In May of 2008, Community Enterprise sent 13 community members, all from the Kemp, Monaco, and Derby areas. This conference was held in Hampton, Virginia. In May of 2009, the conference was held in Spokane, Washington, and 6 active neighbors were able to attend. This year, the conference was held in Anchorage, Alaska. Once again, Community Enterprise, with the support of the Denver Foundation, was able to send community leaders to represent active neighbors in Commerce City. A total of 10 Commerce City residents went to the conference, gained knowledge as into how to improve our neighborhoods. At the conference this year, there were 4 different countries, 26 different states, and 55 different cities represented. These leaders came together to decide what kind of place our nations, our communities, and our neighborhoods will be. We will continue to work in our community and in our neighborhoods. We want to reach out and be inclusive to all the residents in Commerce City. We will continue to spread the message of NUSA with the help of our sponsors. This year, we also had the raffle ticket, and we want to thank all those who purchased raffle tickets to send our neighbors to NUSA. Would the NUSA group please stand? And tonight, Sandy Crowthers and Mike Chinney will take you through a brief presentation regarding our lessons learned and our experience in Alaska, including love your neighborhood, building relationships, and taking back your neighborhood. Sandy?
I think you've already heard me tonight say, love where you live. This is a key concept that I brought back from the conference. It's the name of a Plano, Texas neighborhood revitalization project. It was started by the city, and they formed a very strong coalition with nonprofits, faith-based organizations, businesses, schools, volunteers, and most importantly, residents in the neighborhoods. I think this coalition and their project could serve as a model for taking action in Commerce City. What they focused on was improving the physical appearance of the neighborhoods while strengthening the social fabric at the same time. They carefully rolled it out into targeted neighborhoods, one neighborhood at a time. After their coalition was formed and had a solid basis, they launched this with a day of activities. They had a big volunteer rally. They started community service projects in their targeted neighborhood, and they had a big block party and street fair. Their initial projects include things like curb painting, minor home repairs, alley cleanup, that kind of thing. The coalition members go directly out into the neighborhoods and speak directly to the residents. They ask them, what can we do to help you improve your property? We can't do it all for you, but we've got volunteers and resources that will help you out, and we'll certainly involve you. They developed very strong corporate sponsorships. They had a Pepsi Reface project, for example. So this is one of the dreams I brought back from the conference, and a belief that we could have just as dynamic of a Love Where You Live process and initiative in Commerce City. I think it should be a part of the motto of all of our neighborhood work. They really have an exciting coalition there. You can go on to their website and see examples of projects on it that they've already accomplished. It's an ongoing program in their city. And you get a good feel of what kind of projects that they do. They did win one of the Neighborhood of the Year awards. So I'm going to repeat once again, I love where I live in Commerce City, and I hope that through these kind of projects we can help everyone learn to love where they live. By the way, I misspoke on that Hub article. I believe it was July 14th, not July 5th. We also learned that it's very important to build relationships when you form any coalition. And this applies to all cooperative actions that a group would take. This is especially important for us, the Commerce City neighbor groups and resident-initiated project to do. We need to simply go out to our neighbors, get to know our neighbors, learn who they are, what they're interested in, and start working with them before we just jump right into a grandiose project that we have in mind. And as we expand our coalition, it's equally important to build a relationship with any new partners, whether that's the city, police, schools, or businesses. You can't, I can be very passionate about a cause, but you can't just expect a stranger or anyone to just jump right on board and get involved with you. And this is very important for all coalitions to remember. This is what the Commerce City neighbors are trying to do as we build our groups and projects, and we hope the city feels that we are developing a relationship with you. I think one good example there is the Neighborhood Boundary Identification Project. I now want to introduce Mark Cheney to complete our NUSA report. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk to you about taking back your neighborhood. Taking back your neighborhood, that may sound like your neighborhood's under siege. As one of the stories we heard at the NUSA conference this year involved a neighborhood where drug dealers had planted themselves on the corner. And the grandmothers in the neighborhood decided they were going to do something about it because the police weren't. So they got their card table together in their chairs and they went down on the corner and they sat down next to the drug dealers and started playing cards. Well, grandmothers are bad for business. So the drug dealers moved to a different corner. Grandmothers followed right behind them. Pretty soon, the drug dealers are gone. The grandmothers have taken back their neighborhood. Here in Commerce City, I don't think it's that extreme. What we're talking about here is don't wait for the local government or for a nonprofit to step in. Take ownership for your neighborhood. If you see a problem, start working to figure out how you can fix it. It may be you go to the city and let them know what the problem is, because maybe they don't know. As with all things, there is money involved. Things are expensive these days. There is funding available to start some of these projects. The Denver Foundation has a wonderful program for grants for as little as $500 to help start something in your neighborhood. Now, there are other organizations, block grants that the city has access to. There are companies here in Commerce City that are looking to do things. Suncor is a big one. So taking back your neighborhood can be real simple, and it doesn't have to be a battle. The last things I'm going to talk about, wrapping this up, are some things that the city can do. At one time, I believe the city was a NUSA member. If not, they can be an affiliate. It's real easy, and it's not that expensive. Continue with the neighborhood identification in the core part of the city. Continue to seek input from the community. That's a big one. Encourage the residents to become active in the community and form partnerships with nonprofits in the community. Things that community enterprise is continuing to do. Continue working with the city on important issues in the community. Continue with the neighborhood identification in the core part of the city. Continue working with neighborhood groups in the community. Encourage the residents to become more active in the community and form partnerships with area nonprofits and government agencies, just like what we've done with the city on the neighborhood identification program. And finally, things that residents can do. Start citizen initiated projects to build a better community. Join area nonprofits working in the community. Start or join a neighborhood group. Identify areas in your neighborhood that could use help. Give your input on your neighborhood. Form relationships with other neighbors, government agencies, schools, and nonprofits. Anybody that's working in your neighborhood. And probably the most important thing that a resident can do is to remember to vote. These ideas might seem a bit daunting when you try to look at the real big picture, but if you start with a small idea and let it grow, there is no problem that can't be solved. With everybody working together, Commerce City and the surrounding communities can become a wonderful place, and we all will love where we live. And with that, we're open for any questions.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I personally just want to say I think Community Enterprise is doing a great job, and I want to thank them for everything that they've been doing. I have a few people on the board, so you might want to stick around for a minute. Councilman Moreno.
Well, I think we're in really good hands if you were serving as ambassadors for our city. I really appreciate the ownership that you've shown over this community and getting involved and getting educated and, more importantly, bringing that back to share with us tonight. That's really important. And I know that your work is not going to stop here. You're going to keep going and getting more people involved and starting these projects, and that's really something great. So I really appreciate your work on this, and I appreciate Community Enterprise for empowering our residents to, like you said, love where they live, to get involved in the community. It's something that I learned at an early age, that when you're involved in your community, things are limitless to what you can do, and it's important to remember that everyone has something to offer, and I think that's really the mission of Community Enterprise. Everyone has something to offer. So I really appreciate all the work that you've done so far. Thank you.
Councilwoman Teeter.
Well, thank all of you. It's so impressive to me, all of this and the involvement of the citizens and community enterprise. I just love the two projects, Dynamic Love, Where You Live project, and Taking Your Neighborhoods Back. That is very powerful. Both of those are. Good luck, and I know that this is going to grow. You're going to have more and more members, and I commend all your work and efforts. Thank you.
Councilman McEldowney.
Just echo the comments that have been raised so far. Thank you each for your involvement, your engagement, and I think more importantly your example and some of the comments that you just made, Mr. Cheney, about just taking that step, taking that first step is so critical. I think it's so easy for any of us to see something or observe something over time and think that it's impossible to have any effect on it just as one individual. And oftentimes, as I know you guys are seeing, you take that one small step and all of a sudden you're in the middle of causing change. The thing that I love about what you guys are doing is how positive it is. It's easy to be negative and be contagious. What I like about you guys is the positivity and that contagious spirit that you bring to it. And I just hope that it continues, and I hope to see this partnership continue. So thank you all very much.
Councilman Diaz.
Thank you again, and it sounded like it was a really great trip. And between last week and this week, I'm starting to associate Ms. Carruthers as the lady with all the pins. That's pretty much my association with her. My question is do you know if any other cities, neighboring cities, are members of NUSA?
Yes, there are, and it is available on their website, nusa.org.
Okay.
And just about every host city has been a member. So I was hoping that maybe in the not-too-distant future we might be able to have NUSA here between the refuge and everything. I think it would be a great host city.
I was curious because I did look through the website and I didn't see anybody listed under Colorado.
No, Commerce City is the only city affiliate, representing Colorado as it's the only city affiliate of NUSA. So
That's
Commerce
great.
City is the only city.
No wonder that person from North Carolina has heard of Commerce City, right? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Councilman Bullock.
I just want to echo what everyone else has said, and thank you for your time and diligence, and the reports were just absolutely fantastic. Thank you all so much for taking time to do this for the city of Commerce City. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for your presentation, and we appreciate you guys being here and for everything that you do. Thank you so much.
One last thing. Next year's conference is in Indianapolis, Indiana, the week of the Indy 500.
Wow.
We're looking for individuals that might be interested in going. Get a hold of us at Community Enterprise, and we can start the ball rolling.
Great. Thank you so much. Next, we'll have a presentation by Commerce City Housing Authority regarding their strategic plan. I will now ask City Manager Flannery to introduce the staff that will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. I'd like to ask Mr. Broom to introduce staff for this.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Snyder and members of City Council. Last fall, the Commerce City Housing Authority began discussing the idea of developing a strategic plan. Work on the plan itself began in earnest this spring, and we have several folks here tonight to provide an update to City Council and share what they've learned so far in the planning process. Beginning the presentation will be Tracy Jones, who's the city's housing coordinator. Helping her out tonight will be the vice chairperson of the Housing Authority, Bruce Thomas, and also city planner Steve Timms.
Thank you. Good evening.
Tracy.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. My name is Tracy Jones. I'm the Commerce City Housing Coordinator. The Housing Authority would just like to thank you tonight for the opportunity to update you on the progress of our strategic plan. We do have some board members who are present with us this evening. We have Bruce Thomas, Dolores Hare, Ann Brumfield, Councilperson Dominic Moreno, and Councilperson J.D. Carson. We also have some Housing Authority staff that is present this evening. We have Priscilla Minkowski, who is the Housing Authority accountant. What is the strategic plan? A housing strategic plan is a roadmap to guide the Housing Authority with policies, actions, and priorities, which primarily emphasizes affordable housing issues in the community. Next up, we have Mr. Bruce Thomas, who's part of our Housing Authority Board, and he's going to speak to you about why a plan is needed.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and esteemed council members.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Bruce Thomas. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Commerce City Housing Authority. I've been on the board for over 10 years and have actually 4 of you out of the 8 have had something to do with this board in my tenure while doing this. So I'm very excited to be here. This is a very good plan to get what we need in Commerce City as far as housing underway a little bit. Okay, why is the plan needed? Okay, to address affordable housing needs. First, we got to know what we need. Is it seniors, low-income single parents, families? What are the needs of Commerce City? And this will direct us in that direction. Also, what it's going to do is strengthen partnerships and relationships with the city, with the state and federal agencies, with developers. This will coordinate efforts and hopefully streamline this procedure. The third bullet point, to build stronger neighborhoods. Love where you live, perfect example. Home ownership, affordable housing installs pride in your community and only improves community relations. The fourth one, to provide assistance and guidance in decision making. We need to have guidelines to see what opportunities can and will pop up at us to see what direction we're going to move into. And finally, the plan will enable us to apply for and receive federal, state grants with a more organized, you have to have these plans in place to apply for these grants. So I'm just extremely excited about the direction we're going and hope to work with all of you to achieve some great things for this wonderful city. Thank you very much. And Tracy, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Normally, a plan like this would require outside assistance that could be very costly. The Housing Authority is very fortunate to have the assistance of the city planners. Next up, we have Mr. Steve Timms, one of the city planners, who's going to go over the plan and process.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Nice to see you all from this perspective tonight. You know, planning staff has had the privilege to work with the Housing Authority over the past 6 months. As you all remember, over the past year, 2 years, the city's been working on that comprehensive plan, and that got passed last year. One of the items in that was for the city to, and for the Housing Authority in particular, to update their housing plan or to do a housing plan. And so we were fortunate, myself, Mr. Chris Kramer, Ms. Jennifer Jones, were asked to assist the Housing Authority in creating this Phase 1 opportunity to help the Housing Authority with where they would like to be in 5 or 10 years from now, with help to make decisions, with some of the items that Mr. Thomas just identified. And so we've been assisting them, like I said, over the past 6 months to develop a framework and of what this plan could look like. And so what you see before you on this slide would be the contents of Phase 1, again starting with an introduction and purpose, a snapshot of the housing in Commerce City, in particular the history of our Commerce City Housing Authority, the context, the current conditions that the city finds itself in, and some of the organizational structure that we have. In addition, some of the issue identification, right? What are some of the major issues surrounding housing in this community that this plan could address? After that, there'll be a mission statement, a vision statement, and guiding principles that the Housing Authority has been working on. And finally, for Phase 1, there'll be some goals, some objectives, and some initial action items. Now, there'll be a Phase 2 following this that Ms. Jones will talk about at the end that will dive into more of those specific actions and implementation timelines. But as part of Phase 1, this plan context you see before you is kind of a framework. In terms of the schedule, where we're at, you'll see that we're approximately right around there, step 4, with a goal formulation. We have been working extensively with them every meeting, having types of presentations, having an interactive exercise with them, also involving stakeholder input. You see that in blue there, various stakeholders that Ms. Jones will talk about as well. Finally, after the goal formation, we'll get into some of the objectives and then finalize phase 1 with a draft and then a final document, if you will, adopted by the Housing Authority. Some of the activities, again, that we've had with the Housing Authority, you'll see just pictures here, also with the public, with key stakeholders. Some of the activities you'll see here listed in different formats, spreadsheets, list items, all ways to get crucial feedback and crucial information needed to produce the best plan possible. So that overall the process has been quite rewarding for us. I know that it's been a pleasure to work with the staff associated with the Housing Authority, also the members. Look forward to continuing this project with the rest of Phase 1. So with that, I will go back to Ms. Jones, who will update on what's next.
Thank you, Mr. Timms. The Housing Authority Board, along with the city planners and Housing Authority staff, identified some key stakeholders for this process. Those key stakeholders included key community members, faith-based community members, Adams County, the State of Colorado Division of Housing, affordable housing advocates, developers, and key city staff. Our next steps are the completion of Phase 1 and having the Housing Authority Board to adopt Phase 1, and then start setting our timeline for Phase 2. Phase 2 is going to include finalizing action items, implementation, and specific timelines. With that being said, the Housing Authority would like to thank you again for your time and allowing us to update you on our process, and if there's any questions.
I don't see any, but I'd like to thank you for your presentation and your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to add a point of commendation to the Housing Authority as well as staff. They've done a lot of hard work on this, and it is exciting. It's very exciting to see. Certainly when I met with them, the energy in the room was very positive, and we've had some challenges in that area, and I really commend them for the hard work that they've put into it. I'm really excited to see the results.
I would agree with you 100%. City Manager Flannery, thank you. Councilman Moreno, did you have something to add?
I did, thank you. You know, when I was first elected, a newly elected council member almost 2 years ago, it seems scary to say that, but when I was looking at the boards that I wanted to serve on, Housing Authority was top of my list. And the reason for that is because I so believe in the mission of the Housing Authority that everyone deserves access to affordable housing, and safe affordable housing in particular. And the Housing Authority has done some great projects in this community in the past. Pinecrest is a perfect example, Connor Estates. And I think that this strategic plan process that we're going through now is going to continue to advance that progress, that we are looking to do, new projects. We're looking to increase the amount of senior housing, of affordable housing for low and middle income families. So I think it's really exciting. It's a process that I've been very honored to be a part of, and kudos also to city staff for not having a career as a professional, mediator. You guys have done wonderful work in guiding us into where we need to go, and in providing that crucial input. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that input, and I would agree and echo the comments of Councilman Moreno. So thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Next, we will have an update to council on the citywide pedestrian and bicycle master plan. Once again, City Manager Flannery will introduce staff to come forward and give us an update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. I'd like to ask Mr. McBroom to introduce staff once again.
Thank you, Mr. Flannery. Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem Snyder and members of council. Speaking of plans, the Parks Planning staff has been busy updating the city's pedestrian and bicycle master plan. Work began with the receipt of a grant late last year. The planning process began in earnest earlier this year. And Mike Brown is here this evening to present an update on the status of that planning process.
Thank you. Good evening, Mike. How are you? Good.
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, again, I'm Mike Brown with the Parks and Recreation Department. I would also like to recognize that Tracy Snyder, our Parks Planner, is also here this evening, and she has to drive home to Fort Collins tonight, so I definitely want to make sure that I mention she was here because she'll be appreciative of that. So, we'd also like to thank you for giving us an opportunity to provide you with this update this evening. And we'll go ahead and start with just an overview of the pedestrian and bicycle master plan. You'll recall, and I believe Mr. Timms mentioned it just a moment ago, in May of last year, the city completed its comprehensive plan for the entire city, sort of that land use planning document that sort of looks at things from maybe that 40,000-foot elevation. And then in July of last year, 2010, the Public Works Department completed a transportation plan that looks at transportation issues sort of from that 40 or 50,000 foot level with a little bit of detail. The one thing in both of those plans is it was identified that we needed some work and we needed a better plan and we need to address some pedestrian and bicycle facilities or connectivity within the city, both in the historic part of the city as well in the Northern Range. So that's what we hope to accomplish with this plan. We'd also like to mention that this plan, or the funding for the plan specifically, came from Communities Putting Prevention to Work. It's grant funding that's actually federal stimulus dollars that came through the CDC but is then administered at the local level through the Tri-County Health Department. And that was a grant award that we received approximately a year ago. This particular project will include this comprehensive master plan that I'm talking about for pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, but also wayfinding signage that would go with that plan to help assist our citizens in finding routes and specific destinations that they would like to find. And we have not actually designed that, but we hope to have a specific logo for it, a specific look for it, so that it's readily identifiable by our citizens that they're out and about, that, hey, this is a sign that's going to give me information about how I can walk to this specific destination, how I could ride a bike to this destination, so on and so forth. So that's still in the early development stages at this point. And then again, the overall goal is to create this citywide, comprehensive, very prescriptive plan for how we improve those bike and pedestrian plans. As I said earlier, those previous documents that this will complement are from a very high level. They're sort of looking at a broad brush perspective. What we'd like to do is bring this plan down to the 5-foot level as opposed to the 50,000-foot level and really start identifying routes within the city that we can connect this park to this school to this retail center, this school to the library, so on and so forth. Identify those routes, identify the challenges along those specific routes, and then figure out exactly what type of improvements need to be made and have an overall prescriptive plan with a list of projects as well as the funding that would be required to implement those. So that's what we're hoping to achieve at the end. I'll give you a little update where we are at this point. Essentially, the in-depth analysis and study is underway. We've done some public outreach. We hope to do some more. We did have a public meeting in April of 2011 at the Connor Community Center. We did have a few participants at that meeting, and we gathered some input there. In addition to that, we've had staff, and when I say staff, I mean Tracy, who has gone out to other events in the city to gather input from citizens, as well as have them do surveys, specifically at the El Dia de los Niños event that was at Adams City High School this summer, as well as Derby Days, the June community outreach. And then at the August community outreach, we will actually be having a very big presentation. We're hoping to set up a specific tent for it, do rounds of presentations from the consultants helping us with the plan, and gather as much input as we can before we really get into the nitty-gritty of putting the plan together. And then lastly, the estimated completion date for that project is March of 2012. So with that, I would certainly entertain any questions.
Councilman Benson.
Yes, thank you for making the presentation tonight. Would it be possible to have a citizen input type meeting up north, like in Reunion or somewhere around there at Frontiera?
We certainly could do an additional one. We did have the outreach in the Northern Range where we did have staff there.
You had a booth or something, okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe just a meeting specifically to discuss this would be a good idea, I think.
We could certainly coordinate that with the city manager's office, yes.
And where would be Is a part of the plan a connection of our existing trails to the Platte River Trail?
That would potentially be part of this specific plan. That particular connection is part of the overall Trails Master Plan. The challenge with connecting the Northern Range to the South Platte River is that the best connection that we have, and really the only viable connection, is the multi-use path that is on the north side of 104th Avenue that currently goes from Tower Road all the way to just about the O'Brien Canal at this point, which is just west of Highway 2.
Right.
The next phase will be continuing to expand 104th all the way to the city limits, which ends at Brighton Boulevard. The South Platte River is west beyond that. So our ability to connect to the South Platte River along 104th Avenue is limited in that we don't control the jurisdiction in which that additional trail connection would have to be made. I do know that the county, the city of Thornton, and Commerce City have had discussions about when that may happen, that road may be widened, but there is nothing specific at this point. The only other option we would have is to connect it through the O'Brien Canal, which runs essentially from northeast to southwest, and we could connect it down around 72nd Avenue, which is the connection to the South Platte River in the historic part of the city. That's a very lengthy and expensive section of trail to build, right. And I believe later this year we'll be giving council an update on the overall trail planning in the Northern Range, and that would be one element that we could address more specifically at that time.
I mean, you know what I'm suggesting, and I know that the only gap there is between Highway 2 and the Platte River. You know, once you get to the Platte River, you've got about 350 miles of trails opened up to you. It would seem to me that ought to be, in my opinion, that ought to be a number one high priority to get our people connected with the other 300 to 350 miles of trails that we've got all over the Denver area. Because right now, the only way we can get to the Platte River on an existing trail would be to go down to Sand Creek and then go west until we hit the Platte.
That's great. You could connect at 70th and Colorado Boulevard, which is just a little bit north of that.
A little bit north?
Yeah. There is a trail at 70th and Colorado Boulevard, just west of the old high school site that actually, it's the Fernald Trail that takes you to the South Platte River at about the 74th Avenue alignment.
Are the other, excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly it's going to be an important connection. There's no doubt about that. Our ability to actually do that, though, is limited at this point. Again, because we don't control that right away. It's beyond the city's jurisdiction and the city's limit. We certainly work with our surrounding agencies when we plan trails and hope when we build trails, but everybody unfortunately has their priorities. And I would say it would be nice to get to it. It's not uncommon, though, for everybody in the Metro Denver area to throw their bike on their car, though it's not desirable, drive to a trailhead, and then begin riding there. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it's certainly an option at this point.
Right, and I've done that before, but it sure is a lot better to take off from the house and just ride to get on that trail. How far is that from Highway 2 or where the sidewalk ends over to the Platte? Is that a mile or more? Or
it's right now the sidewalk ends just a little bit west of Highway 2. The next segment of Highway 2 to be widened will be basically from that point, which is Lima Street, I believe, all the way to Brighton Boulevard. Currently, it's not clear yet whether there will be enough funding to build that multi-use path on the north side of 104th Avenue all the way to the end of the road widening, which would be Brighton Boulevard. That is, unfortunately, we'll have to wait until we actually get hard bids back to see whether there's adequate funding to do that. At a minimum, though, through the parks fee, we'll be connecting it from Lima to the O'Brien Canal, as that's one of the bigger trail segments that we're working on in the Northern Range, is to create that loop between 104th, the O'Brien Canal, and the new section of Second Creek that we've just built.
Is it possible to connect to go up to 120th and be on a trail or a sidewalk all the way to the Platte?
The road cross-section for 120th Avenue, the city has adopted road cross-sections that, essentially which are the width of the lanes, the landscape treatment, as well as any sidewalks or trails. It would be on the north side of 120th Avenue, which is in Brighton. So when 120th Avenue is widened, the city again would work with the city of Brighton to make sure that trail was built on the north side and those connections were there. As of yet, I'm not aware of any plans to widen 120th Avenue.
Do you expect any kind of resistance from Adams County and Thornton with regard to this, or is it just a matter of money for them to be able to put in their part of it?
I can only speak to the folks that I work with in those jurisdictions, in the parks, trails and open space divisions, and we're in every way possible always trying to coordinate and collaborate to make sure that we can connect everybody in the metro area, because it benefits all of us.
The reason I'm asking about this and being persistent in it is that second only to getting a grocery store in the north area, this is what my people tell me. We want parks and interconnected trails. That's their number 2, and a rec center up north. All these recreational matters are number 2 on their list, and I just would like to be able to tell them something about how we're going to get connected to the Platte River, because that question gets asked of me several times.
Certainly. Again, there is a way for us to do it, not using 104th Avenue or 120th Avenue, which are at best problematic at this point. It would be through the O'Brien Canal. It's a rather expensive segment of trail, though, with a lot of underpasses, bridges, and so forth, that we can present, and we probably will be presenting here in the near future on our Northern Range trail planning.
Are you talking about building a trail alongside the O'Brien Canal like that which exists along the Highline Canal?
That's correct. Along what they term the Ditch Riders Road, that's generally along canals, we would use that as our trail base. We're planning a section of that trail from 112th Avenue down to 104th Avenue. We're trying to create a 10-mile loop in the Northern Range, the southern portion of it being 96th Avenue, where we already have the trail along the northern border of the Arsenal, or the Rocky Mountain National Arsenal Wildlife Refuge, connects to Second Creek to the east, and we have a segment of trail that we just built in Second Creek that terminates just north of 104th Avenue. So in design, right now in planning, is to continue that Second Creek segment up to the O'Brien Canal, which is just northwest of where the Second Creek currently stops, connect that to the O'Brien Canal, and then the O'Brien Canal south, back to 96th Avenue. So it will create roughly an 8 to 10 mile loop in that Northern Range. That's been our focus, is to try to create that loop up there that most folks want.
Do you have an opinion about the timing, about when something like that might be completed, and also when the connection to the Platte River might be completed? Just your best guess, I guess, at this point.
As for the planning of the loop trail in the Northern Range, comprised of 96, or the trail along the north side of the Arsenal, Second Creek, and the O'Brien Canal, that planning and design phase is estimated to end about a year from now. Once we have those design documents back and the detailed engineering, it will give us a better cost estimate of what it will take to build those. Currently, as you're aware, there's only about $3.2 million in the Park Impact Fee Fund, and I would suspect that building those additional segments that are under design now will cost significantly more than what's currently available. So when it would all be completed, I cannot say, and as far as a connection to 104th Avenue, it's all going to be dependent upon funding.
And what about the connection to the Platte? Any prediction on that?
Again, that's related to road construction, right, which I certainly can't speak to any degree of certainty. The Public Works Department may have a better idea of when those road sections may be widened and that trail may go in at that time.
And as you say, it's all a matter of money. We had $25 million to spend. We could get it all done in the next 6 months, I guess. And it's all going to be...
Well, I don't know about 6 months, but
okay.
but we could get a lot done, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's all going to be, the trails are going to be the crusher fine trails?
Those segments that are currently under design, yes. The north side of 104th Avenue would be concrete as it currently exists, right, where it's completed.
I guess concrete is, what, 5 or 6 times more expensive? Is that...
It varies, but at least 3, as much as 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
A lot of variables.
Well, thanks a lot for your presentation tonight.
Certainly.
Because it'll give me the ability to answer some questions.
Certainly. And you're absolutely right. That connection is very important, and I wish we had more ability to effectuate that. Yeah.
Are you finished, sir?
I'm through. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman McEldowney.
Thanks to you both for the work on this effort, and I too have a rather selfish motivation for interest in the trails. I try and use them as much as I can, and we've been big fans of obviously the new trail system there in the Second Creek floodplain. in my mind, I sort of see two different things, and you've made reference to the trail plan, the overall trail master plan. And that obviously talks about the 104th corridor and our connectivity. And I think if memory serves, we had an update from CDOT within the last couple of years, and there was a placeholder in their fiscally constrained plan for, I want to say 2013, 2014, that talked about potentially doing the bridge at 104th, because that was sort of the key gap, right? You've got Thornton widening 104th from the west to the east. You've got Commerce City widening heading west. And the delta in between was a piece of bridge that's not owned by either municipality. And so that ultimately has to get fixed as well. And knowing where state funding is for transportation, I guess maybe a question for follow-up would be, is that still on a list somewhere? How far out is it? What's the likelihood that it's going to happen? Because once we get the new segment of 104th done at Highway 85, it's actually fairly rideable. One of the things, to the city's credit, that's happened in the last year or so since the western terminus of the 104th expansion is that we've restriped that road fairly well. So you've got a fairly fat shoulder on either side of 104th heading west. And so it's absolutely bikeable, and I've ridden the whole distance. The only places that are of concern right now are crossing Highway 85 and a segment of 104th as you get down to the bridge, because there's literally no shoulder there. So I trust that there's two things there that are going to happen eventually and get us there. I guess on that theme of striping, and I know we've got an item that we've listed for our transportation focus with some of our funds potentially this year, is that connection along Chambers Road. My big concern, I guess, in differentiating from the overarching trails plan and what I think you guys are solving for on this master plan are more careful guidance about how we solve for pedestrian and bike movement in the community at a more granular level. And so I've been in anticipation of this, and just because I've been out riding a lot, watching and kind of reflecting on where I'm at. One of the areas that I've actually raised directly to the folks at Shea is how the Reunion Marketplace has developed. And here's a brand new retail center in the north of our community, and you'd think that it would have sort of very contemporary planning with how it was put together. I made the mistake, and I'll say mistake, of having taking my daughter on her bike and training wheels from our home and staying within the sort of South Lawn and Reunion Metro District area, and trying to have her take the designated bike path all the way to Sonic for ice cream. And it turned into a fairly traumatic afternoon, because imagine being 5.5 on training wheels, and so you're still getting used to this. And if you're on the sidewalk or you're on a bike path, pretty safe. But then what happens is that we have places where you've got a ramp on one side and you've got no curb cut ramp on the other side. Or you've got a sidewalk that abuts one subparcel, and no sidewalk on the next subparcel. So the only way to navigate through that marketplace is to literally make your way all the way out to 104th, go along 104th, out to Tower and along Tower. Two roads that you really don't want to be on training wheels. We've got these really neat...
Or two wheels.
Yeah. And so you've got these great things that look like a bike path, and I effectively now term them as roads to nowhere because they literally end in really odd places. So my comments to Marty were, this is bad design, and I see too many kids who end up not even using the sidewalks, and they end up in the street. And to me, it's just a matter of time before we're going to have an event. I mentioned the segment of Chambers between 112th and Heartland Drive that we've talked about trying to add some path-type surface to. I, again, just last week saw two boys on bikes trying to move from the subdivisions to the north down to the south and literally dodging cars. But the one thing that I noticed this time is that when you're heading southbound on Chambers, and this relates to your signage item, there is a sign when you're heading southbound at around 112th that says, share the road. It's effectively a bike heads up. There are no such signs heading northbound on that same corridor. And anybody who's driven that road knows that there's a bit of a rise there that creates a blind spot. And so, again, it's a matter of timing. Somebody's going to be pedaling in the wrong direction, and somebody's not going to be paying attention. Not that the sign is going to save somebody. But I guess my point here, to end my ramble, is that we have gaps that are developing even in our newest parts of town, and so this to me is so critical that we solve for it. Making sure that the signage is right, making sure that we're consistent with how we create the navigation points at key intersections. Another great example is the intersection of 104th and South Lawn Drive, or I'm sorry, Landmark Drive, right above the underpass. We've got this great pedestrian underpass to head north-south under 104th, but anybody who's walking or on a bike on the sidewalk on the south side of 104th, we have cheated the sidewalk so that you've essentially got a decidedly narrow segment of sidewalk at the corner, and then you've got the pole for the light structure, and there is no sidewalk to the backside. But every other intersection that I've driven by, now that I've observed that, has sidewalk to the backside, so you can move on either side of the light pole. And so it's just items like that that, to me, I've watched people, parents with kids trying to navigate that corner, and it's highly exposed because it's a little off camber and it's a tight turn. And so to me, these are key points that I would hope get covered in the plan. I'm just trying to see if I had any other notes here offhand. I think theme-wise, that's it. Other than I would ask that where we can't afford to put down hard surface trail or see a new segment of trail expanded, that we look at striping and bike lanes and see if we can be more creative and strategic with our striping to give just that extra little increment. Folks that ride in the Northern Range tend to have a handful of routes that they use regularly, and I talk to a lot of people who just never go down that segment of Chambers between 104th and Chambers. They literally will ride all the way around up to Tower to 120th to 104th and then turn around because there's no shoulder. Even 120th is actually fairly safe, fairly wide shoulders, even over the bridge. So I guess those would be my key themes: consistent signage, consistent design of those little sub areas, especially the retail areas, as we try to incent people to move on bikes as opposed to cars. Get out and walk things and bike things and see if they make sense. So thank you guys very much. I know you guys are doing a ton, and I really appreciate it.
Certainly.
Councilman Moreno.
If someone was taking notes, I know Councilman McEldowney would have a lot of input because he's an avid cyclist, and it's great to see that you are identifying these areas of concern as you're bike riding, and I think that's what we need more input about. I was particularly impressed that I was able to attend the first public meeting with Councilman Bullock, and I was impressed that the consultants that are working on this project actually do go and bike ride themselves out in the community and do exactly what you're doing, Councilman McEldowney, taking notes of connectivity issues and that kind of thing. I was impressed by the diversity of residents that were at that first public meeting. We had people from all across the city, particularly from Councilwoman Carson's ward, and a lot of the concerns there were people west of Highway 85 don't have great access to parks and trails, obviously because Highway 85 cuts through right there, and there's not really a safe pedestrian crossing at that point. Some of my comments at that first meeting were regarding connectivity as well, particularly on the Sand Creek Trail, the Delia Trailhead, which is a phenomenal and beautiful trailhead. But the problem is that you almost have to drive to get there. That's a very highly trafficked corridor, particularly with a lot of trucks, considering the industry that's located near there. And there's not an easy way to get there with a bicycle. We want to be encouraging people to walk or to bike to the trailheads rather than driving in their cars and unloading their equipment there. And the other thing is, and I'm particularly excited about that I mentioned at the last meeting, was dedicated bike lanes in the core city. Currently, I think we do have some roads that have wide enough shoulders to make that a possibility, and to get people out of their cars and either walking or riding their bikes. Obviously, the core city represented a lot of challenges from the era in which it was built. obviously, I walk down my neighborhood, the sidewalks are only wide enough for one person. They're not designed for people to walk next to each other and have a conversation while they're walking, which is, I'm happy to see in Northern Range, is something that we've learned from, and we've increased the width of those sidewalks to make sure that people have that access. So anyway, I fully intended to be at the next public meeting in August, and I'm really excited to be able to start work on this. Thank you.
Councilwoman Carson.
As Mr. Marino has highlighted, there is a huge problem up north there, and that is we don't connect to some of our citizens that live on the west side of 85. I know it is we love to think that people go out and ride their bikes for recreation and such, but we have a large amount of students over there who have to cross that highway to get to school every day. And a lot of parents would like to be able to send their children off on bikes, as we all did when we used to ride back and forth to school. And there is no way to possibly do that now if we do not have some kind of a crossover somewhere in that 104th, 120th area for them to do that. And I do know money is an issue. So hopefully, sometime in the future, we can get something on the ballot, citizens will support it, and we can get a crossover there. And Mr. McEldowney, thank you for being the steward of the bike paths. Even when I'm out there, my memory will not be so good to me to be able to recall what was wrong with it. But you guys do a great job out there, and we are coming a long ways with the paths. But as Ms. Marino said, I do hear a lot from the citizens who feel that they live in the forgotten community over there because they cannot come over to this site safely on a bike or walking. So thank you.
If I quickly, I would address a couple of the comments. I think it may help or bring some clarity to what exactly it is we're doing. As I think it's been mentioned, in the historic part of the city, it developed when everything was very auto-centric. There's not a lot of good connectivity. So in this particular part of the city, we really need to identify how we improve that, where we make those improvements, and specifically what has to be done to do that, and come up with a prescriptive plan. Whereas in the northern part of the city, our Prairie Ways Action Plan, which is the master planning document for the Northern Range, bike and pedestrian facilities are very well planned for. Unfortunately, they were developed in very small segments by developers. We'd have a developer come in and develop here, and a portion of a trail or a path would be built, and then there would be a break between, and then another segment would be built. And so unfortunately, with that slowing down, those connections are going to be difficult. But again, it's very well planned for up there. What we hope to do with this plan, though, knowing that it's likely going to be some time before all of that develops, that great system that was planned ahead of time up north, but at least identify some key gaps, which is, I think, is what you're talking about, that we can try to connect as many people as we can to some of the important destinations. We're not going to be able to complete all of them, but at least identify those and do the best that we can with those is what we hope to identify, at least north, with this particular plan, as well as something very comprehensive for the southern portion. Does that help?
It does, and I'm just again, I think, eager to see that traction. I know, the needs and challenges in the core city. I've taken the refuge trail down, and you go explore, and it's daunting. And I think to Ms. Carson's point, if you've got folks that live west of Highway 85, you can't connect to the schools. And so it is just trying to identify those key gaps. And I think being very strategic in how we potentially bridge some of those gaps in a manner that helps give us some benefit in the near term, and we get to some optimal solution later. I think the only other thing that I would add, I guess, on the example with the retail is that as we have new retail that takes shape, or we see the Victory Crossing sites evolve, I think being savvier about the pedestrian and bike movements is just going to be critical. And the other thing I think about is we've got a number of citizens that are very well known to us all here in the core city who move through our city on an electric wheelchair. And the same challenges exist for folks in those that need to move through in that device. And so I think about some of the inconsistencies in how people can find themselves in awkward spots. And so we kind of extend this in my mind beyond just pedestrians and bikes to other modes of movement as well.
And certainly, I think in the comprehensive plan that was just completed, those are some big goals and objectives, is pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. And I believe there are probably some very prescriptive things in the land development code that require it, I believe now. And I thought Chris Kramer might be able to speak to that, but I know that there are specifics that do address those specific things. When somebody comes in with a development plan for a retail center, pedestrian and bicycle connectivity and paths and so forth are definitely a priority, or one of the things that we can require.
It's all good. We know you guys are working for us. Thank you.
Dominic, did you have something to add?
Just briefly, I think Councilman McEldowney brought up a great point, and it's a community's voice that's not always heard, and that's the disabled community and their access in terms of being able to get around in the core city and in the Northern Range on wheelchairs. And something I've been really excited about is that I've seen construction going on around the core city to make sure that those sidewalks do have slope down where they can cross. And also, I believe there's also a raised portion. Is that correct, Mike? And I'm not sure if that's for visually impaired community, but there's a raised portion also that's being included with those.
For crosswalks.
The dimples on the ramps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what purpose they serve, if they're for the visual.
Those are truncated domes. They're actually to indicate where you are, but also to help with ice buildup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, great. But I just wanted to commend, staff for really getting on that and making sure that we have proper access for disabled persons in our city.
And we certainly will take that into consideration in the plan.
Great.
We definitely pay attention.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, on to administrative council business. Does anyone have any business to discuss? Councilwoman Teeter.
Yes, I have a quick question. I have down for Wednesday night AdCog Denver hosted by Brighton, but I don't have an address and I didn't get a calendar this evening. Does anybody have that information?
I believe that there was an email sent out, and I can check, but I think it's at Pinocchio's Restaurant in Brighton.
Can you forward that to all of us, please, sir? I don't have that information either.
Okay, I'll look.
Is that at 6 o'clock?
I know where that restaurant's
Yep.
at, so that's all I need to
Right
know.
by the train tracks. They're right in Main, right off Main.
Right. Okay, thank you, sir. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Carson.
Not to open up any can of anything, but I know it was at last council's meeting that there was a request by Ms. Teeter to have this year's statements of expenditures by this council for travel. I would like to see 18 months. I think you get a better picture if you can go over an 18-month period instead of just a 6-month period.
Thank you. I actually, under my report, I was going to mention we were going to send out the year-to-date tomorrow. We had some formatting issues, but we have all that information. But in the course of some of the discussions just late this afternoon, there was some discussion about maybe getting last year's as well, so that falls right into line. It may take a couple extra days. Does the council prefer to get the entire, 1 year and then the last 6 months at one time? We can still send out the year-to-date tomorrow and then send you a follow-up with the last year's as well. But it may make sense to have it all in one package so you can just see it, and we'll probably be able to get you that by Thursday or Friday.
I think that would have to be something that we have a consensus on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Should I just go down the line, or?
That would be fine.
Okay. Councilman Bullock? Sorry. Councilman McEldowney? Go ahead.
Just to clarify, I think if we can have the year-to-date available as it's ready and then republish with the prior year so it's a comprehensive document would be great.
Yeah, what I would intend to do is really package them as two documents in one package that I send you.
Great. So, yes.
So if I understand this, we're basically just looking for a list from each person of what conferences they've attended, where they've gone, that sort of thing? Is that what we're looking at, or?
The direction that we received last week and that we put together for year-to-date is what you have left in your discretionary fund balances and what those expenditures were. And then we have a list of the travel claims that you've submitted to the city and what those numbers are and their totals.
Okay, thanks. Councilman Diaz? Yes. Councilwoman Teeter? Yes. Councilman Moreno? Yes. Councilman Benson? Yes. Councilwoman Carson? Yes. Okay, that's fine, we have our direction.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Carson, did you have anything else to add? No, that's it. Thank you. Councilman McElDowney?
Thank you. I sent a note to Mr. Flannery earlier before the meeting and copied in the deputy city managers. I used the First Creek Dog Park over the weekend, late Sunday night, to get the dogs some exercise. And it has been a phenomenal facility forever, but for whatever reason, it seems like things have gotten a little out of hand there. Weed overgrowth around the perimeter of the facility is pretty intense right now. It seems as if the care has continued between the parking area and the main entrance into the play area, but the actual weed growth inside was pretty intense. And as a result, it's harder to see debris and such that's in there. I think I picked up about 6 tennis balls, a couple Frisbees, and the like. And I know that those are pet owner responsibilities, but just if we can get that updated, that would be great. It's it's such a great place, and I try and anytime I encounter a dog owner who's using playing with their dog in a park without a leash, where it would be great to do so in the neighborhood, remind them that we have that facility available. So I just don't want to be referring folks over there if it's not up to snuff.
Just really quickly, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. McElDowney, Brian may want to jump in, but I know that, and I really do appreciate you emailing that information so that we could get a little bit of a heads up on it. And basically, with the flooding that occurred in Fairfax, there was a lot of time, and so the date for maintaining that was slipped back. Okay. So I understand they're going to be going out probably in the next few weeks, but maybe you can expand.
Yes, should be within the next few years.
That's great. And I expected there was something to that effect. I didn't even think to connect the storm distractions, and I know that took up a ton of park staff time. So thank you very much.
Councilman Moreno?
Just one quick item. I mentioned it briefly earlier during the Arsenal update. The prairie dogs have started to burrow in the city right-of-way in the grassy area on Quebec Street in front of the bulk mail facility. And, I know that there have been some concerns raised from citizens in previous meetings about how do we manage prairie dogs, that kind of thing. So I wanted to just give that tip to staff and also possibly request a report on what the city does exactly, because I'm not aware of that, what we do specifically to manage prairie dogs from a city standpoint on our property. So I'd just like to request a report on that.
Just to piggyback again on the prairie dog concept or topic, it's been an item that I've had several folks approach me on as of late as well, and have noticed some pretty significant developments in the Turnberry subdivision along the backside of the retail and all along sort of the main entry into the Turnberry subdivision on the way back to their pool and on the way back to the school. They have also, if memory serves, the same holds true for the entry into the Buffalo Mesa subdivision, the Buckley Ranch subdivision. It seems like there's been an explosion outside the boundaries of the refuge. And obviously the spots that Mr. Moreno's mentioned, I mean, all along that abutment. And I guess the concern as I raised to Tri-County was that where our most visible components of the refuge are, I know it's beautiful interior, but where we have our most high visibility corridors, it's gotten really bad in the last couple of years. And if you do use the trail on the refuge, then you know that you've got to be mindful of the hazards in the trail bed itself. And I'm obviously concerned about the impact on the trail and our investment in that trail. I know, they could undermine concrete just as well, but I think that soft surface or the crusher fines or the recycled asphalt, I guess, that we've used in that context seems to be a little less tolerant of their digging. So, I mean, that entire perimeter trail has been compromised. So, thank you.
Councilman Bullock?
I had a couple of citizens that had a concern about Fairfax detention, and I've tried to let them know that there's work being done there to upgrade that detention facility. But a couple of them have asked, do we need more detention there, like on the west side of the railroad tracks, additional detention? Because during the storms of the first of the month and everything, the detention left Fairfax Park too, and it was actually out in the streets, and so they're wondering maybe it's time to add some additional detention to Fairfax Park. But this is Public Works, and I'm just passing along because they did have flooding in the streets going down the neighborhoods from Fairfax Park. And I know a lot of times that is because the grates get kind of clogged up with debris, and then it pushes it back, and it takes a while for that to drain, but that doesn't seem to concern them when they're calling you.
Councilman Bullock, if we can put, if I can get a status report from staff, I'll give it to council, but also if you'd like us to follow up with the citizens specifically, we can do that too.
Okay.
Okay. Just one last thing that I had to add was I announced last week that I was going to be trying to schedule a ward meeting, and I have spoken with Councilman Moreno, and we're going to go ahead and have a ward meeting together. So basically the whole South, we'll do a ward meeting in combination of the two. So that way we can combine costs on whatever we need to together. So we will select a date and be letting everyone know very soon what we're going to do. So thank you for that. Okay, moving on, it looks like we have the long-range financial strategic planning update.
Madam Mayor, Pro Tem, and members of council, I asked Mr. Tinklenberg to put together a memo, and I emailed that to you today. And generally, it's an update regarding the city attorney putting together the ballot language, proposed ballot language. We'll be bringing that to council by August 22nd. Financial Department is moving forward with the different fundings for the CIP and how we go about accounting for that in the general fund. These will all be coming up through briefings in August. We are looking at the refuse collection, and we'll be coming back with recommendations on that as well. Presentation regarding revenues is scheduled for August 8th, 2011. And then we sent out requests of volunteers to serve on the Quality Community Initiative Stakeholder Committee for the in the citizens for the committee. We placed those ads in the Commerce City News. Staff is also looking and working with stakeholders to actively identify candidates for the Quality Community Initiative. Stakeholder volunteer candidates will be recommended to council for final selection.
Okay.
And I emailed that to you earlier today.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll move on to report. City Attorney.
I have one item to discuss with council, and I think the best place to do it is under reports. I've received several calls from members of the council regarding Xcel Energy's efforts concerning the gas line. And basically, Mr. Gibson is seeking to meet with council members one-on-one to discuss the issue. It's a delicate situation because on the one hand, we as a city don't want to be non-cooperative in trying to reach a good solution to this problem. And on the other hand, we got to bear in mind that there's going to come a time when this is going to be a quasi-judicial hearing before the city council. So the advice I've been giving is this, and I'll repeat it for all members of the council, is that certainly if you want to meet with him, that's fine. I think it's might not be a bad idea to meet with him so that he knows your interest is there and you can express a point of view. But here's what you have to be very careful of, and that is, don't express an opinion as to any proposed location. You can say that the public hearing process will determine whether or not the proposed location is safe, because public safety is certainly one of the criteria for determining location. You can also state that the public hearing process will determine whether or not the proposed location is compatible. And you're going to take that into account. Is it safe and is it compatible? But by all means, don't express a bias that says, I am totally opposed to this location, because or don't express a statement such as the effect that putting it there is going to kill children, as an example. Because what that does, and I'll just repeat it, and this is probably old news for most of you, but what it means is that when it comes up to a public hearing, and if you vote on it, and you're permitted to vote on it because you haven't disqualified yourself, and you don't recuse yourself voluntarily, and you vote on it, then let's say that the location is turned down. What we've done is set ourselves up for a court review of that proceeding, and it's pretty easy for a judge to read a record and determine that you've prejudged the case and they didn't get a fair hearing. So what's going to happen, you're going to have a reversal of your decision. So it's certainly my job and also all of your responsibility to make sure that you don't disqualify yourself from voting on this issue when it comes before you in a public hearing process. So if you choose to meet with him, that's fine, and I think it might be a good idea to express a point of view that you want it safe, you want it compatible, and those are the criteria that you're going to use in the public hearing process, but don't say that this location is totally bad and I'm all against it. Because right away, it doesn't take any rocket scientists to discover that you've prejudged the case. So that's the point I'm making. And if you haven't already been contacted, he has indicated that he's going to be contacting you, and you'll be hearing from him. But I'm not saying don't meet with him, but I'm just saying if you meet with him, be cautious and careful as to how that discussion goes. And I think that's the extent of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Pro Tem, and members of council. Very quickly, just wanted to note the council follow-up sheet that is on your dais. Encourage you to review that, and if you have any questions, let us know. Also, wanted to reiterate, over the weekend I sent you an email regarding a Channel 9 news story on our graffiti and how we addressed it creatively with a number of different departments. I just wanted to reiterate thanks to all of those departments who were involved with creating a positive solution and a positive story. And then just as a follow-up, citizens communication issue we'll bring back. I think we're targeting August 15th, so just a reminder of that as well. Is that correct?
Okay.
Citizens communication.
Oh, it's August 15th.
Yeah, we're looking at mid-August.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We discussed the 8th, but the 15th,
Oh,
is
okay.
that where we're going?
Okay.
Okay.
8th or the 15th, we'll see how the agenda plays out on that schedule.
Okay.
Does council have a problem with that?
The sooner the better would be, but if you can't get it on the 8th, the 15th would have to be the fallback date. But I would prefer to see it on the 8th.
I would
sure.
also. I mean, that's what we've been told, is that it's going to be the 8th. There's no reason to put this off any further than that.
I don't recall it being mentioned as the 8th, but in the council meeting. But if that's what you've been told, then that's what we'll shoot for.
Does that work for the city attorney?
That we review the agenda tomorrow and see what we have.
Yeah.
We don't want to have 3-4 hour meetings if
Absolutely.
we can avoid them. And we'll see what we can work out with that agenda. But we've heard your comments. And just so council knows, it was informal discussions on my part that mentioned the 8th. It wasn't mentioned in city council meeting for the 8th. So I just want to make that clear that it wasn't committed for the 8th. It was just that I thought that we could look at the 8th.
Okay, thanks. I'm sure you'll let us know what works best with the schedule. Mr. McBroom, did you have anything to add? Okay. Councilman Moreno.
Yeah, just a couple of things to report. Wanted to thank council for your for your approval of the trip to Washington D.C. last week. It was very productive. Was able to have a conversation with the Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood. Talk to him about some of the major transportation initiatives in Commerce City. For one, he brought up fast tracks. Did say that more federal funding is coming for fast tracks, which is exciting. I think one of the things that this council needs to be strong on, though, and talk to RTD about, is that in that grant funding proposal on the federal level, money will be coming to the North Metro line, and it will include a build-out of fast tracks up until the stock show stop, but that's as far as it goes. And I think that this council needs to consider talking to RTD, because in that funding proposal is also included more money for rail extensions. And I personally think that RTD needs to be funding those unfunded lines rather than thinking about extending existing lines. So that's something that hopefully this council, we can discuss and take a position on. We also got to briefly discuss some of the major federal arterial highways surrounding Commerce City, and the Secretary encouraged us that we should be applying for a Tiger grant, so I'm excited to report that that's on his radar. And we'll be hopefully working with city staff to look at what we can submit for a Tiger grant. That's $527 million of grant funds that can be distributed to local governments, and that application is due early October. So we need to work on it now and quickly so we can be able to be eligible for those funds. Beyond that, it was a great discussion because all of the participants were from what they call first suburbs that are just outside large metropolitan areas. And it was a great dialogue to be able to talk with those other policymakers in those areas, particularly the issues that are facing first suburbs. And a lot of those issues include declining home values. Some of the people we didn't have as much in common with. There were some council members and mayors from outside, like Cleveland and Detroit, obviously metro areas that are in serious decline. But in Denver, we're fortunate enough to be growing, and we're going to continue to grow. So that's exciting to see. Also wanted to report on my attendance at the waste management tour immediately preceding the council meeting. Was able to take that tour with Councilman Diaz, and we're a little dirty, maybe a little smelly tonight because of it, but it was really great to be able to see how exactly things are recycled. Waste Management is a great partner with the city in making sure that we offer our residents those recycling opportunities. So that was great to see. And let's see if I have anything else. I think that is it. If I think of anything else, though, I'll press my button again. Thanks.
Okay. Councilman Benson?
Yes, thank you. Well, last week we had Dr. Cog last Wednesday night. I want to point out that Dr. Cog is having a board orientation at 4 p.m. on Thursday, August 25th. And any of you are invited to attend that, 4 p.m. down at the Dr. Cog offices at 1290 Broadway, anybody on the staff, anybody on the council. And I know that Mr. Marino and Ms. Carson were there a couple of years ago. You can't go to enough of these. The learning curve with Dr. Cog is almost like Point du Hoc on D-Day. It's almost straight up. It's it's good to go to these things, and I'm sure going to try to be there. But anybody wants any information about that, let me know. The question I had was about, I've heard that the neighborhood night out is going to be like next Tuesday, August the 2nd. Is that correct?
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes.
When will we be able to get a list of all the locations?
It is in our neighborhood newspaper right now that was sent out to everyone. It tells all the different locations where the neighborhood night out will be this year.
Do we have any kind of a city, just a piece of paper that has, because I know last year I saw something like that. It had all the different locations.
We can email that to you.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. And, in response to Mr. Gaylor's comments about Excel, I've gotten a couple of calls from Preston Gibson, and I sent him an email saying that I thought it would not be good for me to meet personally with him, that I would be glad to go to any public meetings, and that I was very encouraged about what I heard at our Wednesday meeting out at Stewart Middle School, because I think that we made a lot of headway there. And I know I asked him during that meeting, I said, throw us a bone. Give us something here. And he has said to me, we're going to throw you a T-bone steak. So those are his words. So let's hope that whatever their proposal is, it's going to be something that we're all going to be able to support. But that's about all I have tonight.
Thank you. Councilwoman Carson?
I would just like to be excused from next Monday's meeting. I will be out of town next Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone have any issue with that? No? Okay. Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Councilwoman Teeter?
No report?
Councilman Diaz?
No reports.
Councilman McElDowney?
No further report.
Councilman Bullock?
No further report.
Just a couple of quick things that I have, and then that'll be that. Wanted to say that I thought the staff did a great job with the senior birthday lunch and the Western theme that went on. I particularly liked that Western theme, and everybody looked really great. And I just wanted to say really great job, staff, because they really loved it, and I thought it was really great. So thank you for that. Congratulations to North Forest for their ribbon cutting. And I think that's all I have. So seeing no one else on the board, if there be no further business to come before this council, we are adjourned.
Ha ha.